It says going live. I assume, oh, good. Yeah, it worked. Okay, let's go start this up. Nice. So today, Adam is doing group mentoring. Ask him any questions you have about software engineering, your career, maybe even just general life stuff, if you trust him. And at a stream uptime of 2H20M, he'll be doing the first ever on-stream interview with Amanda. Yeah. It's a chat, not a... It's chat, not a technical interview, yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's the plan for today. Do I have chat open twice? I do. I also still have this open, and I've made 10,000 copper bars. Whew. That's a lot of copper bars. All right, let me edit this on YouTube as well. All right, good. So yeah, that's the style of today's stream. I used to do this a while ago, and then I stopped because I did one-on-one mentoring. So I don't have any other plans other than to just kind of chat today. So if anyone has anything they want to talk about, definitely let me know. The other thing I wanted to figure out really fast is, what do people think as far as green screen goes? This interview that I'm doing today, I could either have like a virtual background like this, I guess. Not that, hang on. Where is it? This. Like this. Or I could have my actual room. So I like take down the green screen. And I don't know what I should do, but I'm leaning toward taking down the green screen. Anyway. All right, I'm gonna write the today command while we're waiting for people to stroll in. So Adam is doing first ever on-stream interview with Amanda. Instagram is here. TikTok is here. Amanda is a software engineer at Microsoft and a content creator herself. Oh, I should probably put this like this. There we go. What? What? Subway surfers? I have not seen this. Do I have anything else that I have here? Make sure to bring up the top spread on Discord. Interview document is here. Close my questions document as soon as the interview is over. Make a command for interviews with the document for each person. I guess, again, as long as we're waiting, I might as well do that last part. I have the mentoring spreadsheet, and I should go figure out where this is so I can make an interviewing spreadsheet or something. It's in mentoring, makes sense. I'll put this in public. Yeah, let's just make a new folder, interviews. All right, then we'll make a new document. And all right, I gotta share this. All right, so we're gonna call this Adam, whoops. Adam learns interviews, or interviews on Adam learns. I don't know what to say. All right, we'll do it that way. Programmer D, thanks for resubbing. You managed to find the Prime button. They're hiding it on you. It's like a TikTok trend thing that whenever you have a TikTok of just talking, you also have Subway Surfers gameplay. Oh, interesting. This was a thing a long time ago on YouTube. People would just play an FPS or something while they were rambling on about whatever. Okay, so today gonna be Amanda, and again, I'll link in her information. Amanda, software developer at Microsoft and content creator. Cool. Make a command for interviews. Yeah, I'll do that. ACOM interviews. Adam conducts interviews on stream from time to time. Read about past / upcoming interviews here. Cool. Yes, that's done. Streaming just a stream. I'm going to copy paste this from over here from last week regarding game design. Yeah, cool. So I guess when I did this in the past, did I just start a stream like this? I feel like I did. I guess I was doing more kind of consistent development and I don't know. Anyway, for anyone who's joining, for anyone who's lurking, who feels like asking any questions about software engineering or I don't know, your career or just kind of anything, feel free to ask in chat and I will happily answer. Otherwise, I don't have a like backup activity. There's no Subway Surfers going on over here. So I'm just going to tackle some kind of random things. But yeah, usually there would be a conversation going pretty quickly. And then I think I tend to be pretty verbose answering questions. So I think we'll be fine once there's some people asking some things. What was the last thing? Oh yeah, the journal that I wanted to fill out. And you can ask on YouTube as well. I am looking at YouTube chat too. All right, so this is the 13th and we did game design and group mentoring. Hey, Smoo. Started designing a new game in the morning, then did group mentoring in the afternoon and interviewed and did the first interview with Amanda. Yeah. All right, cool. I have done everything I wanted to do, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about the co-working stuff for tomorrow, but for those who haven't heard, actually, do I have a co-working command? I should probably just put this in if I haven't already. Co-working. I don't. Huh, interesting. All right. Hey, Pressel. Hey, Darkstorm. Darkstorm, by the way, I don't know if you saw, but I gave you a point for the helping with the thumbnail thing. So now, where are you on this list? You're number 4. You tied for 4 with a jar of mayonnaise. All right, we'll add a co-working command. Adam does co-working sessions on Thursdays on Discord. I'm not going to do this. Never mind. There doesn't need to be a command until people try to use it because I'm not sure someone's ever going to type it in and I don't know what it's going to be. But what I'm planning on having it be is just a day of productivity. You join in on voice chat. No one will probably be talking. I'll be muting myself and everyone else. Although maybe I can't enforce that everybody's muted. I could remove permissions. But anyway, it'll be something like that where you're aware that there are other people there, but there's no real chatter going on over voice. However, I will have a text channel where people can talk about, I don't know, whatever they're working on or something. I say whatever and I sound a little bit dismissive about this only because I don't know what people are going to want to do. I don't know if they'll even join. I will try to be there and I'll probably be working on the course that I want to make. Yeah. Discord has an inside call chat. Yeah. That is what I plan on using. And that way people could mute it if they want. Or actually, maybe they don't even need to mute it. Maybe it only pings you if you're in the voice chat. But yeah, I want to do that. And I was debating on like, should I have a Pomodoro thing set up and have people abide by it? I think I should probably have a Pomodoro thing for myself, but I don't think I should make other people follow it. Yeah, maybe use a Pomodoro timer just for myself so that I don't get so that I still take breaks. Yeah, unless you ping someone not in the call. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good setup for this. And we'll see how it goes. People might be expecting, oh, I'm joining a voice chat, so maybe everyone's going to be talking, and yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. But I'm pretty excited. I feel like I now have some direction for what I'm doing again. Like, we're going to be working on this game, and hopefully it goes well. And I think it'll still fit into the learning content, because I don't know what engine I'm going to use. It's probably going to be Godot or Unreal, or not Unreal, Godot or Unity. And if it's Unity, I'll have to relearn a bunch of stuff. Yeah, what's the secret meeting where everyone's muted? What if someone joins and they're just like, everyone, you're on mute. Hello? Hello? Is there a command about the game? No, I want to come up with a title for it. And then I guess once we come up with a title for it, what do I call it? Evolving RPG. Once we come up with a title, I can make, whoops. I can make a command. What is the game called? Make a command and point to this document once we have a name. Probably won't make it open source. Yeah. I'll just write this for code. Not going to be open source since I plan on selling the end product. Is the Google Doc public? It is. Yeah, I can share it into chat. It's not very fleshed out yet. And I want to spend some more time doing this. I think we'll start on Friday. Well, start doing more of it. And maybe I'll put some thought into it outside of the stream. I don't know. I don't mind just doing the whole thing on stream. Hey, Boffy. All right, you can make a command now. Like, just game. I guess I could. Are you worried at all, based on your experience with Botland, about starting another game? No, I think it's a good question. So if this game were to last like 4 years to make it, I think it'd be problematic. But I'm aiming for about 3 months, and I'm not counting the design. The design phase is going to take however long it takes, and I want to be convinced that I should even start working on the game. And I don't think 3 months is probably long enough to finish a game like this, especially if I end up using a different engine than what I'm used to. But I think it's enough to at least figure out that, like, yeah, this is fun, or no, it's not fun. And that was the biggest problem with Botland, is that it was a game with microtransactions that I hadn't really proved if it was fun. This is a game that might cost like $3 or $5, and I don't know, you play it for a few hours or a few days and then you're just done with it. And so if people seem to enjoy it in its testing phase, then I think we can be reasonably sure that it'll sell at least something. But who knows? 85 filter. I'm excited for the game dev stuff. I'm excited too. And I think it represents something I want to tackle. It's an interesting idea. Hey, Andorn. So there's a lot to it. I think is going to be pretty interesting. Let me put something over here. So lurking in chat, feel free to ask Adam a question. Anything right now. And Doran, thank you for resubbing. You are now the prime nerd. Let's close all these millions of tabs. There we go. Release on Steam. Don't forget the upload fee. Yeah, I'm aware of the upload fee. I see that as a very minor fee for like releasing a game. Probably also I'll release it on itch. I mean, might as well try to reach as big of an audience as I can. Otherwise, you know, I might be like, okay, I'm going to spend, you know, a week on the game and I don't really care about selling it. But no, I would want to sell what I do here. I expect the total cost would probably be in the very low number of hundreds. So yeah, the upload fee, maybe some artwork, maybe some sound stuff, maybe a tiny amount of design or something. But yeah, I wouldn't be spending a lot of money. It said filter. AMA, do you think you'd win against 1,000 chickens or one line, excuse me. Isn't it which would I rather fight? Anyway, I would pick the I'd probably lose against both. I'd stand more of a chance against the chickens, but I feel like death by chickens would probably be worse than death by lion. Plan on doing sound design and art by yourself? No, I plan on just getting art assets. I had paid for these a while ago, and like maybe I'll use these. I'm not sure. But I paid for these a long time ago. By the way, I paid like $40 for these. Now I looked online, I think they're $5. And I'm guessing it's because people aren't really using these assets anymore or something. They're decent. What I find that's lacking with these is generally projectiles. It's like it's only what you see here. And this isn't a lot. And so if I want to add in different effects or something, it's going to be kind of tough. But I feel like, hey, I've got these. This will at least get me started. I know there are lots of games that use those graphics. $40 isn't bad for that amount of work. It's just too bad that they're just way cheaper now. That's all. Like, where is this? Yeah, 16-bit fantasy, $5. And with inflation, I bought this 13 years ago. There's an inflation calculator. I really spent. Is this not gonna load? Okay, yeah. So in 2011, I think I spent about $40. It would be $55. Say that's like a new video game. I just got some artwork. YOLO it and let generative ML systems make all the missing assets. I think that'd be kind of cool, actually. I think we could do that for projectiles, probably. Yeah. In fact, I should probably write that down for ideas. Consider using AI assets for missing sprites, e.g. projectiles or maybe items. Yeah. Will it be a part of the project somehow? I mean, I guess technically anything I code is going to use some AI because of Copilot. Hey, LSRP. Repurpose all the bottom graphics. I'm picturing medieval fantasy, I guess. Too much inconsistency if you do animations. Yeah, I think for something like a projectile, it might not be too bad, but who knows? I thought you bought it like last year. No, yeah, it was a while ago. But even if I bought it last year, I still think $40 for that is kind of a lot. What do you think the most critical mistakes a junior dev makes are? How to prevent them? So let's see. This is a good question. Most critical mistakes. I always kind of say this, not asking questions. Like, don't work in a silo. So you're not expected to know everything as a junior developer. And it's not maybe made clear enough to people that you're not expected to know everything. So you might think like, okay, I just got hired. I went to school or I learned a bunch of stuff on my own and now I'm on the job and I don't know what I'm doing. And you might just think, okay, well, I'll just try to make progress or something. And so you try to make progress, but you don't. And you don't know who to ask. And maybe you start getting self-conscious or something. So it's definitely talk to your team, lean on your team, talk to them, and yeah, learn on the job and see what other people are doing. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake I tended to see. Is there any other major thing? I guess also just kind of observe what other people are doing well. Yeah, I think if you have like a follow-up question about this or something that this kind of sparks as I talk here, I'm happy to answer it. It's hard for me to like exhaustively list out things that could go wrong. I think the other kind of thing that maybe this goes without saying, but like be careful about access and credentials. This is not typically a problem at big companies because they'll usually have systems in place for this. But if you are a consultant, if you're working on a very small team, it's possible they don't have good systems in place for this. And every once in a while you hear a story about people deleting production databases or wiping out the site, or google.com points now to some Brazilian website. I think that happened last year, right? A bunch supposed to have memory on characters now. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look into this stuff. New game. How about a bot war game where you control units by coding scripts? Yeah, so this new game is actually an automation game, and it does have battling in it, but it's not that you write automation. It's that you just use automation. Already using AI for pixel art. Super hard to make this similar style. It's good as long as you don't care if the style doesn't match. Yeah, I tried with Bing Image Creator for a little bit, and I wasn't very happy with it, but I didn't test anything else out, really. Hey, Volatile Majesty. Are you even good enough to have imposter syndrome? Oh. Do you feel like fresh or new junior devs make the mistake of pressuring themselves too much to be perfect that they end up not getting tasks done initially because they don't want to let the team down? It's hard for me to say exactly because I don't know what's going on in the minds of other people sometimes. Sometimes you ask them, hey, what was going through your head at the time? But a lot of times it's just you see the output, but you don't know the input. And it could be anything, right? It could be that they're struggling with something in real life. Could be they don't know how to do the task. Could be that they thought they knew how to do the task and just did it poorly. And I guess that's the other thing that I should write here. This learn on the job is, and this goes for everybody, but be open to growth. But it's especially true when you're new on the job. Like, you don't know everything. You shouldn't know everything. But even the things you think you know, if someone says, hey, here's maybe a better way of doing it, be open to that. And you'll grow in more ways than just the technical aspects too. I think if you are pressuring yourself to be perfect, that it's kind of recognizing the slow growth you might have in technology, I think it's easy to look at other people and see their skill set and not know what went into getting that skill set. And I think for a lot of people, it is making tons of mistakes. I think mistakes are some of the fastest way to learn what you're supposed to do. And so if you delete a production database, that's the kind of mistake you probably only ever make once. And then hopefully never again. And everyone knows you're not supposed to delete a production database, but I feel like that experience and probably that, maybe embarrassment of having it happen to you will teach you pretty quickly not to do it again. And so now picture it with lower stakes things like, hey, I submitted a code review and there were a couple bugs. It's like, okay, that's not taking down the company and they were caught in code review and that's what the point of a code review is. But still be open to like, okay, I should learn from this. I should see how I can avoid this in the future. I run it locally. Are you using, what was that thing called? I was running it on my own machine at one point. Stable diffusion? Are you using something else? Juniors tend to spin their wheels a lot when stuck without recognizing they're stuck. Taking the time to pause and ask for help can be good if you spent an hour on the same problem. Yeah, I think that's a good, like having a time limit on how long you spend tackling a task. Because here's the sort of truth of things, right? A junior engineer gets a task. And so you get task X and you're said, okay, you're told this is going to take 3 days or whatever. A senior engineer tackling that same task may take like an hour. And so the company made, or the team made a mindful decision to give this task to a junior engineer to help them grow, knowing that if they just wanted it to get done, they could give it to the senior engineer. And maybe it takes the senior engineer a day or something. The ratios aren't important. The point is that at any point, you can ask a person who's more senior than you, hey, how would you do this? And they'd just be able to tell you literally step by step how you could do it. But that's not the point. You should pursue it a little bit yourself, try to figure out how you would do it yourself. And then with that thought process in your head of approaching it from scratch as though you didn't have help, you'll be able to augment it with the experience you get from other people. The thought of not knowing something, I think I'm expected to know. Yeah, and by the way, there are times when I think there are things you're expected to know because let's say you've made a mistake on them in the past. So let's say you ask something like, just as an example question, how do I write an if statement? Now you wouldn't be asking this on the job, hopefully, but if you were asking this, then somebody answers, then cool. But if you ask this a second time or a third time, like that's probably not a good sign. And so at that point, I'd start to say like, okay, you should be taking notes. You should figure out how to figure this out. So in this case, you could just type in something into Google, right? How do I write an if statement in C++ or, ask an AI or something. So that's the only time I think it's actually a bad sign. And a lot of times it won't be that you're asking for the exact same information over and over. It's usually a variation on that. So like, hey, I wrote a unit test in portion A of the code base. How do I add one in portion B of the code base? And those are similar, but they might not be exactly the same. And there could actually be different answers. Anyway, at the end of the day, don't hesitate to ask questions, even if you feel like it's something you should know, even if you feel like you asked it at another time in the past. The only reason I say that this is a bad sign is because it indicates there's something else you should be doing on top of asking the question to remember it for the future. How would you go about management setting a too optimistic timeline while the actual things that need to be done aren't even defined yet? Oh man, that's very tough because this can get political. So I think it's important to push back where you can and do so respectfully. If someone says, hey, I want you to make this project in 6 months, and you're saying, I don't see how that's possible. I estimate this will take 12 to 18 months. And then you say we could cut things. We could add more people to the project now and not, in the last 2 months of the project. Like, how else could we get the resourcing for this? Or are you fine with a farther timeline? And by the way, this equation plays out pretty much all the time. There is a task X, which is actually work Y. So like task X maybe, make a feature, and work Y may be something like it takes 6 months to do. Now, it taking this is a reality, but then there's an estimate Z, which is usually wildly wrong. It will take me 2 months to do. And so if you think about it, you got to know estimates can be wrong. You're saying that there's a task, and I don't know what the task is, and that they're saying that it is, presumably they don't think it's too optimistic a timeline. So let's say they say it'll take 6 months, and your estimate is actually on the higher side. So maybe you say it's 12 months. So now what are the solutions to this? And it's either convince them that they've underestimated. It is get more people. It's do less work. Or it's, I guess, the flip side of this one is realize that you overestimated. And it's just proceed anyway. And a lot of companies or teams go with this as their solution. Well, we'll just proceed. And if you don't get it done in 6 months, then fine, we can figure out where we are. So I think no matter what, a conversation needs to happen with somebody to figure out like what case are you in and what should you be doing. And I think that a good starting point is this of like, hey, I think we've underestimated this. And there are lots of things you can do if you can convince them of this. They could say something like, all right, well, how about we just have every month we check in and see what our trajectory is. And this is a lot of what I would say program management is it's coming up with organization around a project. And you might have like burn down charts, for example, saying, okay, here's how many bugs we have. Here's how many more tasks we have to do. Here's what we've estimated them as. You get other people to chime in. But I think in the end, it's almost always some amount of communication and then like a agreement or a compromise. Because you're dealing with uncertain estimates and some amount of critical features that need to be done. Stable diffusion, I see. Luckily, when I dropped the database, it was just a test system. Yeah, probably helped, though. Helped you not want to ever drop another database again. I don't know what position you've been in on Teams, but how much were you helping your teammates while at Google? I feel like, so my time at Google was split into two different teams, working on GCP and working on Android Studio. And on the GCP side, I would say it was less about me helping my immediate team. And on the Android Studio side, I would say it was much more helping the immediate team. So I was working on a test framework while I was on Android Studio, and people who needed to write tests would need to use this framework. And so for that, they would just end up talking to me and saying, okay, here's what I want to do. How do I do it? And I would need to guide them through how to do it. And they'd usually have follow-up questions. And I needed there was a lot that went into all this stuff. So that was much more, I'd say, collaborative and helping everyone out. For the GCP side, we were working on something that was sort of experimental. Didn't really have a product yet. I didn't have as much Google experience at the time. So it wasn't me helping my immediate team as much. There was helping more distant teams, which I should highlight when I'm actually answering here. Yeah, this one. But there were teams that we had to build on top of, and sometimes I'd give them feedback on how their service could be better, that sort of thing. I pushed back several times, but nothing seems to change. Now we have one burnout and a second in the making. They've already defined the deadlines without even knowing the estimates. I mean, at that point, you have a decision to make, which is, do you stick to those deadlines? I mean, what happens if you miss them? Like, are you worried about getting fired from your job, for example? Are you worried about a bad performance review? Because I don't think that kind of pressure at a company is good for anybody. I don't think it's good for the product. I don't think it's good for the people. And I think those projects usually kind of go south. If you see this happening a lot, by the way, I think it's a sign that the company is not well managed. And I think maybe this is kind of a bigger thing as a piece of advice here. There are poorly managed teams. Can't type a colon. All right. Well, anyway, there are poorly managed teams. And at some point you have a decision of, do I fix this or do I leave? I don't think the choice is, do I just stay on this forever? Although I guess that is the third option, but I don't think that's a good option. and poorly managed companies. And, there was someone in chat the other day, I know their name, but I'm not going to say it. There's someone in chat the other day who said, hey, that senior dev was finally fired. And I knew the history of this because they were talking about it on Discord. The senior dev that they were talking about was like a condescending jerk from everything I heard. I've never met this person, but the condescending jerk, wouldn't boost the team at all. Said things like, oh, you're going to go crying back to daddy when, it was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to the manager about this. Like, just bad stuff, not a team player, right? The fact that that person exists at the company is a sign that management is either not aware or doesn't care about it. And both of those are problems, and they're both fixable problems. But yeah, you have to ask yourself, how much do I want to fix it versus how much Am I willing to put up with it, keep the status quo? And I think as you get more senior, you care less about, well, I'll just say you care less about some things. And it's not totally right to say it this way, but maybe consequences or maybe politics or maybe, I don't know, something along those lines where you might feel like you should voice your opinion more. And I don't think it has to be the as you get more senior part. I think junior people should be vocal about the problems that they see on a team as well. And they'll have a different view of it. And some might not even be problems, but staying quiet about this stuff is how a lot of problems happen at a company. And you see it with everything. You see it with technical things. You see it with people management. You see it with harassment cases. Like people should not stay quiet about the problems that they see at a job. Or at least on a job like this. In the company I work at, if you create a pull request with some very unclean code, you get reported to management. Like you get in deep trouble. Yeah, this is, I don't know. People have some like weird set of consequences that they have for these things. Like bad code leading to getting chastised is not a good system. It should be that bad code leads to education and that leads to good code. This is the ideal path. And, there's that hokey expression, be the change you want to see in the world. Only hokey because of how often it's repeated, but it's true. If you can stop this culture yourself at the very least, and I think it's easy to get stuck in that position where you see this happening. Hey, bad code, report that person to management. And it becomes that whole, what is it? The analogy of the 5 monkeys in a cage. You got 5 monkeys in a cage and there's a bunch of bananas in the middle. And I don't know how this is usually told, so I'm just going to tell it the way I remember it, which is, one of the monkeys goes and tries to reach for the bananas and they get electrified or something like that. And now the monkeys in the cage learn, don't go touch the bananas. Don't do that. Eventually, you cycle out the monkeys until none of the monkeys are left who actually saw a monkey get electrified, and they still won't touch the bananas because they'll all kind of communicate with each other. So they essentially kind of keep this culture going. And I think we do this too sometimes. It's like, oh, this is par for the course. I'm going to report this person to management. And then you think, this is actually a good idea to do. Should I maybe just help that person? Like, are they struggling with something? And maybe this is why imposter syndrome is as big as it is that people aren't necessarily talking to each other about, hey, what are my strengths or weaknesses here? But that's why I say, like, communication with your coworkers, asking them questions. I think these things can generally only help. And there's a limit to this, right? You can be annoying with your questions. If every 5 minutes you're asking someone, then yeah, there's a problem. Also, I've seen this happen at a past job too, where there was a coworker who was asking different people. So essentially, imagine like round robining your way through all of your different coworkers. Let's say you have 10 coworkers. And so each coworker is getting 10% of the questions, but this person shouldn't have been asking 10 questions. They should have been asking like a little bit and then trying to figure more out. And so they were kind of evading detection a little bit by doing this. Anyway, I talked about it with that person and with their manager, and I don't know if they've improved because I've left the company, but it's these sorts of things that I think people should try to figure out. How do I help the system or the culture or the person? Giving and receiving help amongst teammates is hopefully universal, Google and beyond. Yeah, I think it generally is. I think it's when sometimes you have teams where you're not really working on the same stuff, but you're sort of lumped into the same general category. And then it's a little harder to help each other because you don't really know their space. Was it fatiguing or did you enjoy it? I didn't enjoy the Google work as a whole, so it's hard to say if this aspect was tough. I think I liked helping people. And I think that there were some requests that were really hard to fulfill sometimes, and that was a little bit tough. But I generally liked working with other people. Look for something else. On the other hand, if you're the only one pushing back, I'd be curious why it's just you. Yeah, I think this is good advice, what Smooth said. Do you feel as though juniors should be expected to put more work in than more experienced peers? I feel like I hear about juniors putting in a ton more hours. I'm mentally exhausted. No, I don't think they should be putting more hours. No. I think you should make your hours count. So if you're, I don't know, like whatever, reading Reddit every 10 minutes or something like that, that's probably not a good idea. And so making it count is the whole work smarter, not harder thing. Where are you tripping up? Where do you find yourself needing help? How do you get that help? And I I don't know if this is fair to say, but like the average work week that I hear about sort of across the world is about like 35 to 40 hours probably. I feel like that's more than enough time to do good work. In fact, that's maybe even too much to some people. I feel like if you put in maybe something like 25 to 35 hours per week, that's a good opportunity to learn, to do, to grow, to coordinate with people. And certainly going beyond 40 should just not be necessary. Not in a company setting. If you're working at a startup, it might be different. A lot of times you have to wear many different hats. And yeah, even me starting up my stream again in the last few months, it's like there was a lot of work to do. And now I'm trying to actually carve out that boundary for myself, because that was one of the biggest things that I had on my own tenets, was like work-life balance, sustainability. Fresh haircut, got one yourself? Yeah. I told this story, but Saturday I went to get a haircut and they said come back later. And right before I could come back later, the most intense hailstorm happened and power was knocked out everywhere. So when I went yesterday to get my haircut, she's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, you couldn't come back on Saturday." She's like, "I got to leave work early because the power was out and we couldn't cut people's hair because we couldn't even see." I felt a little bit bad that like that's what let her get out of work, but yeah, I got my haircut. Any advice for building company culture remotely? Did Google have any tools or techniques to manage it? I don't think there were any major tools. I think it all comes down to what is the current culture and does it promote growing that culture? And that's very tough. So if you're the only person who's like, "Hey, we should all get together, let's play Minecraft or something or whatever, let's have an in-person meeting once a year," it's going to be really hard to get people on board. So you essentially need to find some like-minded people to sort of bootstrap the process and then build it out from there. So maybe like find 1 to 2 people who are on board and can kick this off. It could be a meeting, it could be an in-person thing once a year, it could be a game. There are lots of ideas you can do, but you need people to be interested in it. And I found it was easier during the pandemic. I talked about this in my Why I Left Google video, but during the pandemic, everyone was in the same boat. So everybody cared about making things better. Then once there was the return to office, and the return to office, at least at Google, I'm just going to make up numbers here, but let's say it was like 80% in office and maybe 20% remote. Again, making up numbers, but the vast majority were in office. And so at that point, the shared awareness goes away of, wait a second, there's a remote culture here. Oh yeah, right. The pandemic. I forgot all about that. So I think when it was during the pandemic, it was easier for our teams to say, let's get together once a week, or let's do a morale event once a month or something like that. But really, it doesn't take a lot to just make people feel like they're being included. And you can always start that endeavor. And it can be something simple like, let's eat lunch together on Fridays or every other Friday even. And we'll just talk about stuff. And yeah, but I think the way I'd start is just by finding like even a couple other people and then saying, "Hey, we have 3 people who want to join. I'd love to get to know more of you." Pretty small team and partially new management takeover. Yeah. That's another thing, is company culture A polluting company B. And I think, there was talk of this at Google. There were a lot of execs who joined from other companies and they weren't used to the Google culture. And so they were kind of shifting things. And I don't know how true that is. I couldn't directly track that myself. But yeah, when you have new management, they might be like, "Well, this worked at my last job." And it's like, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Who knows? Maybe the long-term effects were worse than the short-term outcome you got from pushing a project through the pipeline. The pipeline literally directly write an email after commits. Are you talking about to report people to a manager? Because if so, that is a funny joke. How'd you go about speaking up about a problem? I usually start describing how I feel it affects me. I think so. This is a good question. And I think this takes some amount of, what's the word here? I guess discretion. So do you think the person is open to feedback? If so, 100% tell them directly. If not, well, if you're not sure, then test it or ask them if they're open. And if you're sure that it's a no, then talk to management, yours or theirs. In the experience I just mentioned, so I went and I talked to their manager, and this manager was actually a little bit defensive. They were like, I haven't witnessed this behavior that you're talking about. And I am a very note-oriented person. And so when they were a little bit defensive, I'm like, look, I can share some more of these stories. And I like shared a document that I've been keeping. And then they're like, okay, I'll keep an eye on this. And then they believed me. And then they said, okay, I talked to that person. And then it turned out to be more of a problem after that. And sometimes, by the way, I don't mean to say this is all rosy. Sometimes there's no fixing the problem. Sometimes you have just a bad employee. And when you have a bad employee, the ideal situation, if they're not going to get better, is to weed them out of the company or minimize the impact they can have on other people. So yeah, when it comes to speaking up about the problem, it means like you'll have to talk to somebody. And maybe, by the way, the only other route beyond these, it's like you tell them or you tell someone else, or you maybe you share anonymously if you can. Sometimes this is possible, not always. Yeah. Faceless voice. As I was scrolling through Reddit negative feed, I remembered Adam's recent video and closed Reddit. Especially sucks to be care about doing a good job on the product. The surrounding environment makes it toxic to do it. Yep. I think that is one of the most demoralizing things is like, hey, I'm actually into my job and I care about it and I want to do better. And other people are making that difficult for me. And, you know, like I said, everyone has something going on in their life. So it's possible that someone, you know, just had a kid and they're struggling to even find time to sleep, let alone do well at their job. And that's why I still think no matter what, whatever problems you have, whatever frustrations you have, try to be mindful that you're working with other people who have their own complex lives and problems. And I think only in some cases does it turn out that, like, if the person's being aggressive, like that senior dev I mentioned that I didn't work with them, but I heard the story on Discord, like they're just like belittling coworkers. At that point, I feel it doesn't matter as much what's going on in their personal life. Like you shouldn't act that way. So at that point, it becomes a personnel problem. Can it be a work-related hackathon? Oh, totally. It can be anything that gets people together and creates bonding. If anyone here has been following the mentoring sessions that I've been doing, so one of the people is Kyle, and Kyle had mentioned an annual in-person meeting that they couldn't make it to. And they said that after this meeting, like social stuff just popped off. They didn't say it this way. This is my immature phrasing. Just by getting together, that created some momentum for them to go do more and form real friendships amongst the team. I think that's great. And I think anyone can set something like this up. Maybe not an in-person meeting. That's a lot harder because that involves funds. Like you need to travel to get to the in-person meeting. But yeah, you can set up a hackathon if you want to. And who knows, maybe that works on its own. Maybe there's something more to it than that. Maybe you want to do team-based hackathons. It could be anything. And usually it's just a matter of kind of selling it to management. And it's pretty easy to sell work-related hackathons. It's also easy to sell things if you can convince someone that there's a morale problem or just to form better bonds on the team. And it's easier to sell something if it's a pretty small event. So if you're like, hey, could we get you know, $15 per person to host a, I don't know, like a remote, we eat cookies together session. Like people go to the grocery store, they expense the receipts, it costs the team $100. People would probably be like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. You know, like just ideas. They're not good ideas. That I'm just giving you something that you could go bring to people and talk to them about. Got shortlisted twice for an internship, but rejected me twice for the other candidate. Advice on not losing the mental game. I think this is, look, I can give you advice, but at the end of the day, I think this is all, how do you see things? So for one, for sure, and you even said mental, it is entirely a mentality thing. Like, unless you know for sure that you were wrongly treated or something, it's entirely possible this other candidate was better or first or who knows what. And it doesn't really matter because you've still got to keep trying. And so I think that's important. Keep trying. Remember, this is a numbers game. You know, even the best candidates don't get every single job they apply to. And yeah, I think focus on whatever positives you can. So maybe in studying for this, you learn something important. I don't know. Maybe it's you got to work on a project that you wouldn't have worked on otherwise. but yeah, it entirely comes down to mentality. So you've got to find some way to frame this so that you're not just like, why should I even keep doing this? And I can't tell you exactly what it would be for you and for your mentality, but it's got to be a shift somehow. Also, time helps. So, maybe take a step back for a little bit, maybe go, I don't know, talk to some other people who are in the same situation. But yeah, in the end, it's got to result in still trying, if that's what you want to do. Similar to what I thought and try to do, but it's good to have other people shine their light. Yeah, and I like I said, I still think there's a case where at some point all of the inputs. If you walk into a team meeting and you're like, I know this is going to be hostile, and then you leave the team meeting and you think, okay, now I have work to do, but it's too much work. It's like, okay, now you've identified, I don't like the work environment. I have too much work. Management isn't great. No one has my back. At that point, you know the facts, and now it's up to you to decide what do you do with that. And maybe you're getting paid a ton of money and you're like, fine, I'll stay for a bit. Maybe you have another job opportunity and you think this is it. This is what convinces me to go do that. And maybe this is what is the kick in the pants to go find job opportunities. All right, take care. What did you just say to me? And hey, Respirata. Just started an educational program last fall to become a system developer. In group projects and teams, how long should one keep trying to solve a problem before asking for help? On one hand, I want to solve it and not just get the answer from someone who knows and also not bother them all the time. On the other, I get stressed because it feels like I'm wasting time trying to solve it myself and failing. I think that threshold depends on what you're doing, and that you should have some like rules of thumb here. So let's say it's some like small feature or function maybe. I'd probably try for like 10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. I don't know, something like that. Let's say it's something a little bit bigger. It could be like 2 hours. Like, why don't you figure out, hey, what if I design this myself or something? I would almost never go more than about a half day. Probably bad. Because if you think about it just in terms of time lost, if you spend 10 minutes doing something and it's fruitless, it's not really a big deal, right? If you spend 3 days doing something and it's fruitless, it's probably an issue. So, yeah, I think you should be getting something out of this. And I think the general gauge that you have for this is, am I making progress? And maybe the secondary gauge could be, how fast is that progress? And so the am I making progress is usually apparent. Like, you're tackling an error you're getting from your compiler and you're like, I just can't figure this out. I mean, I know you said system developer, so I don't know exactly what you're struggling with, but compiler error, and you're like, I can't figure this out. I can't figure this out. That's pretty easy to tell. Have I even tried new things? Do I have hunches? I think that's another gauge, is like, do I have hunches on how to solve this? Now, this is something I can speak to quite a lot. I have solved some interesting problems. I'm not even saying complex problems, just interesting problems. The other day, for example, this is not me solving this, but I'll give you an example of an interesting problem. I recorded myself saying the word whoops, and it plays out on my operating system whenever I do something I can't do. And it was coming out at a lower pitch than normal. I had no idea what could be doing this. It turns out the problem was that some 48 kilohertz audio is being converted to 44.1 kilohertz. And Raimu noticed it immediately. Now, Raimu took like 3 seconds and immediately figured that out. So did I have hunches on how to solve this? My hunches were like, Google it. I don't know, figure things. And so if I hadn't talked to the stream about it and Raimu hadn't been there, I wouldn't have gotten my answer in like 3 seconds that I would have not figured out on my own. I would not have come to that conclusion of what is doing this, or I would have just needed to search the internet for it. And so you never know when you're in that situation until you have enough experience to kind of give you heuristics for that of, could someone just completely put me out of my misery here and solve my problem in 3 seconds? And that's why you shouldn't spend too long on any of this stuff, because you could be proceeding in the wrong direction. So given that you asked this, Peplon, I'd say, homework for you is try to cut down the amount of time it takes to ask questions until you see there's a problem on the other side of things where people are like, I'm asking too much. Because probably other people don't mind that you're asking if you're not being like excessive about it. And by excessive, I mean, like, if you're asking someone else a question 4 times per hour, that's probably excessive. At that point, maybe have a meeting with them or something. But if they're not complaining, and if you seem to be making progress and you're learning, I think that's the other important thing. Like, not just did I solve my problem, but did I learn how to do this for next time? Then it's probably not an issue. Vwem, thanks for resubbing. Welcome back. I was thinking about your name and how I said Vwem. Think carefully wording it so you don't blame anyone at the start is important, and get people's opinions. Yep, I agree. Yeah, and I think that's part of giving feedback. I want to do a video on that at some point. Like, what does it take to give good feedback? What does it take to receive feedback? Asking my manager for $15 of cookies. Honestly, it's not a bad idea. It's just not the best idea, maybe. But I think these remote morale events, they don't take a lot to be good or fun or memorable. It could just be, hey, we all hung out and ate cookies. And like, it could be just funny enough to be a story later too. Yeah. At my last job, the line was half an hour. But that was, I don't know what this means. Advanced business application programming. Where knowledge is magnitudes of order more important than skill, yeah. 20 minutes per day of work if the task should be around 3 days, an hour more or less. Yeah. I think I'd be the guy who could think of stupid problems like the Kilohertz thing. Yeah, well, and my point with that was there are sometimes things that you have hunches for and you can work towards solving, and there are other times where it's just this total shot in the dark you never would have thought of, and that doesn't even necessarily come down to just problems. I mean, think of when you're designing something. Let's say I wanted to make a text editor, and let's say I wanted to color matching brackets. So this is essentially like an interview problem, right? How do you detect the brackets? How do you know to color, whatever, something like this basically, right? Like you can see the colors that are used here. How do you know to color this pair with this other pair? And how do you do this in a performant way? And so if you look at how VS Code did this, bracket colorizer, they wrote a blog post on how they did this 10,000 times faster than how they had done this before. Now, this is not so crazy that you can't understand this, but this is not also a short article, right? And they mentioned things like the time complexity here, the algorithms that they have, how they ended up doing this. Now imagine you're designing this. Maybe you treat this like an interview problem and you come up with something that's fast enough. If you don't run this by somebody else, they might never give you the opportunity to say, hey, have you thought of this way of doing things? And that alone of just have you thought of X is usually really important. There's this thing I've been saying lately, which is that if you come up with an idea on your own, it can only be like 80% as good as its best version. This is me paraphrasing myself right now, but I think it takes other people to give you that last 20%. Like rarely do we come up with in a vacuum just a perfect idea that's gonna whatever fix a feature or solve a problem or something, unless it's a simple problem. I guess that could be fine. Yeah, Copilot wants to take over. It's trying to type for me. I could just turn this back into plain text and it should stop doing that. I had a note a while ago. I mean, I guess I still have the note, but it was called Crazy Bugs and How I Fix Them. And this is more just kind of stories for myself that were interesting to look through again. And do I have this still? I wonder. Oh, I closed my private notes. Well, there were some interesting things in there. Let me see if I can find that really fast. Oh yeah, there it is. All right, let's see. Can I share any of these? Oh, I wrote a blog post on one of them. Yeah. All right, I can summarize that in a second, but let me look through this some more. Oh yeah, okay, I have an example of a kind of an easy one. Numbers in programming languages typically have a set amount of bits used to represent them. So for example, in JavaScript, if you type something like 123.123, you can represent that. You can represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you type large enough numbers, so not that, not that, not that, there. Okay, take a look at that. I typed in this number and it's so large that it got almost the same number. But you can see my number ended in a 9 and this number ends in a 0. And so the problem I had is Steam identifiers for people are very long numbers. But in JavaScript, if you don't represent them as a string or a big integer, then they turn into something like this, and there's no way for you to know that was wrong. And if you're not aware that this is even possible in languages, then you might not code against this. And so that's an example of one of those, like, maybe you just need another set of eyes on this. And this bug was that I used to issue tokens in Botland that just had your ID, but they were signed, so you couldn't manipulate this yourself. So if you got this token, it was as good as you being whatever this user was, but you couldn't generate this yourself. And the only way for the server to generate it is if you had the right username and password. And so that was totally fine until I had a database rollback. And then ID 1234 wasn't used yet in the new database. It was like, 1000 might have been the last ID that was used. And so when this new user came about and someone registered and got this ID, because I was just using incrementing IDs, which you could consider to be the real problem and not UUIDs, then the person who had this token was playing as this other person. So again, just like wild bug, I know how I would do this now, but if I hadn't run into this, I just never would have known to even look for this in the future or kind of consider those problems. Is there a role where I could spend a lot of time giving people those last 20%? I enjoy it more than anything else at work, and I think I'm not terrible at it. I'm not totally sure. Yeah, because you need to know when they're facing a problem like that. I mean, I think it's just part of the role of any software engineer. Yeah, but I don't think there's a role specifically for it. Has anyone found Copilot or similar tools to be pretty helpful? I've been using it more and more just for simplifying doing a normal web search. Haven't found as much application for direct coding use cases. I think they're helpful for just typing out kind of repeated blocks of code that you might have already had. So for example, if I open up, let's open this. Oh wait, no, I gotta do this. Okay, so here's my code base for the bot. And let's open up, I don't know, bot.ts. And let's say we add in a new function here, like async add congratulate command. I don't even know what this is going to do. And we just type in, actually, yeah, let's see. All right, so it makes a new command with congratulate description. Congratulate someone for something they did. When you execute, it needs to take in the username. And then it gets it, and then it says congratulations username for whatever reason. So this is pretty good. Like this kind of matches the code I would have written. And so I think AI, even just for this sort of task, is pretty amazing because this saves a lot of time and it at least gives you some of the edge cases you might have needed to consider. So like maybe this code is wrong, let's say, but it still knows, oh, hey, check for the number of parameters you get. And it fills in fields that you wouldn't need to look up now. Like I wouldn't need to go into new command and be like, what do we have here? Oh, an ID, a privilege can be deleted. It actually, I think, came up with some things that don't exist here. But still, I think it serves as a foundation for you to do less thinking. Whole Twitter feed is about Darwin. Yeah, I've been asked a couple times today about Darwin. I haven't actually looked into it. I probably should. Hey, Kaiman. Currently, I have a feeling that I'm implementing a tool instead of being a software engineer. This gives me the feeling that I'm not learning new things. What can I do about this? A backend developer uses Laravel a lot. My weakness at this moment is probably database design. I think there are going to be times on a job where the needs of the job override your needs as an individual. So needs of the job and needs as an individual. And so this can be fine sometimes. But if it's true all of the time, then this is kind of a career management problem. I would say something your manager needs to focus on. So do you find yourself in this situation a lot? Because every once in a while, you're going to have to do something that you just don't want to do. And that's fine. It's just like, yeah, you'll get through it. There'll eventually be something else. It is this way most of the time, you're saying. Okay, do you have freedom to change that yourself? And second question, so this is number one. And second question is, have you talked to anyone about how you feel? So I keep saying that you should communicate with people. I don't really fault people for not divining this information themselves. Like you might look unhappy at work and maybe you're like, oh, I'm giving off the signs, I kind of complained about a task. But if you're not outright like, hey, look, this is how I feel. I feel like I'm being a tool more than a software developer. Could I get tasks to help me with database design? Could I, that's the kind of thing I think managers usually like hearing. I think people just want some direction on how to help. And if you don't give them that direction, then they don't have the opportunity to help. So it's hard to say. But yeah, if you've talked to people, if you don't have the freedom to change it, and if you feel like this is still a problem, then it could be signaling that the job isn't exactly the best job. This also comes into play, the philosophy of job versus, I guess, like free time here. You could learn database design on your own if you want to. And you don't need the job for that. Maybe your ideal situation is that the job would help you learn it. But like, I don't know, how much does it matter to have that as a skill? How much does it matter for your job to teach it to you? So do you want to carve out that time yourself? Not really, because it's taking a lot of extra time. Yeah. Yeah, I would say if you haven't talked to your manager, talk to your manager. If your manager doesn't care and you think someone else might care, then talk to that someone else. If no one cares, you don't have the freedom, you don't like this, then it's, you want to learn it yourself. What advice do you have? I would say there are a bunch of ways you can pursue educating yourself on any topic. It could be sort of like the formal route, maybe like a course or a class. It could be like the informal route that's still more pedagogical, like a tutorial on YouTube or a blog post or something. It could just be hands-on, just make a project with database design and do it and see what happens. And it could be a mixture of these things, and it could be looking at other people's designs. I think if you've been watching the stream in the last like week or so, you've seen me do the same thing with the Godot multiplayer stuff. If you look online for Godot multiplayer and then just look at the URLs. So here we have an official URL on high level multiplayer. Here we have an official URL on scene replication. And I'm pretty sure that's it for official URLs. Yeah, now we're on Reddit, GitHub. This is actually an official URL, some other thing. Anyway, my point is you'll find some amount of official resources that exist. And then I exhausted those and started looking at some other things. Then I started looking at people's code. Then I started looking at libraries that exist. And I sort of just kept branching out and trying to see, am I learning things still? So I think you can apply the same thing with learning kind of any topic. And I mean, especially database design. Database design is a very practical thing. You design it so that the database can be used in production and ideally have consistent data that's easy to work with and all the other properties of databases you would want. And then try using that data. Like maybe you, I don't know, you come up with an application where you're like, I want to store bus routes or something like that. And like, how would you do that? Do you know how you do it? Would you store bus driver IDs somewhere? Would you store individual buses? How would you represent cities? How would you store coordinates in the database? Like design it and then try putting that data in, see if it works. Do you think TikTok should be banned? On what basis, I guess? Because I think there are two parts of the question, and I'm not going to play dumb here, but I think there's the geopolitical part, and I think there is the societal impact part. And I will not comment on this, I guess, but commenting on the societal impact, I think it is like anything else that could be considered harmful to a society, in that people should hopefully be able to determine for themselves whether it's harmful to them and develop behaviors that let them either mitigate it if it's harmful or prevent it from becoming harmful. Wiggy, thank you for subbing. Yeah, spyware aspects is the geopolitical part. I'm not going to talk about that. Have over 5 years startup experience. Should I switch to Fang for that sweet RSUs? I made a video. So I was just at Google for 3 years, and this is the video that I did on it. And the short answer is money was great. Fulfillment was mostly absent. For some people, I mean, this is just like the equation I set up here. The needs of the job can be more than your needs as an individual. That's totally fine from time to time. But at some point, you as an individual should have your needs be prioritized. So same thing here. What is the equation for you? For some people, it is like full throttle on the money side of things, in which case, go for it. There's almost no better thing you could do on that front other than, you know, start a successful company, I guess. And for other people, it is purely on the fulfillment side. Like, I don't care, you know, I don't need the money. I just want to be fulfilled. For most people, it's going to be a balance of the two. And by the way, these are not opposites of each other. People can be fulfilled at a big company and be making money doing it. And I had on the last team I was on an Android studio, And my boss's boss's boss, so I guess the director of our org, I asked him once, because right before I left, he's like, "Oh, so what are you gonna go do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a Twitch streamer," which is probably he's probably internally rolling his eyes, but he was gracious about it. And he said like, "Oh, cool. You know, what are you doing? What?" And so I asked him, I'm like, "Do you ever get the itch to do something else?" And he said, "No, I've been lucky in that whatever it is that's my main job is what I'm into, and that's it, and that's fulfilling for him." And so he found a great a great intersection of what he likes, what is needed, and what pays well. And that's practically the ideal for everybody, right? Find that intersection of what do you like, what's needed, and what pays well. And I mean, even just the what do you like part is good enough on its own sometimes. So yeah, I can't say for sure whether you should switch, but I think it's worth trying out. And 5 years of experience is enough time where you've seen the startup life and you know how you feel about it. So if you feel like, yeah, I kind of want to try something new, then yeah, give it a shot. Start prepping and interview. What time is the interview booked for? The interview is booked for 1 hour and 13 minutes from now. So actually, I should take my first break. T Dreams, thanks for subbing. Okay, yeah, let me go take my first break. I've been working my way through chat. I hope you've all been enjoying this. Yeah, I'm a little bit late on this. Hope you've been enjoying it. I want to make this clear. In a little over an hour, I'm going to be doing the first ever interview on this stream. And I'm going to have my friend Amanda on the stream. She's a software engineer at Microsoft. If you have any questions for her, feel free to ask. I've got a Discord channel for it, but here's the information at least. Yeah. All right. So I'll be back in about 4 to 5 minutes. In the meantime, play some Jump Royale. Is it jump time? It's jump time. All right, hey everybody. Oh, lol also shows. Close the game. All right, so I want to make sure we're on track. We are now at 151. So at 250, make sure I've taken my break already. So about an hour from now, which I guess means like maybe 55 minutes from now. Remind me about my break. I won't have chat to it. Let me just make a timer on my phone. Remind me in 55 minutes to take a break.
All right, I'll remind you today at 2:47.
Okay. All right, so where did we leave off here? The only other thing I wanted to ask about, so what do I do on my break? So for this break, I mean, I used the bathroom, but also I took a picture of my cat living the absolute best life in the world. Look at this. Look at that cat. Chilling in the sunbeam. I guess that's like the worst way I could have shared that photo. Here you go. Look at her. She's living a blessed life over there. Oh, to be a cat. Yeah, so I went and tried to pet her, but she seemed to be quite content to just be on her own over there. Dog is also sunbathing. Seattle sun is so nice to see again. Yeah. There's no blue sky out of my window, though. It's all gray. Oh, wait, no. I went far enough. There was some blue. Yeah, so we got about another like 50-ish minutes. If people want to keep asking me questions, totally fine. And then, like I said, we're going to be doing the interview. What is this a link to? Oh, yeah, the news post. Okay. Now I'm excited. I think today's been pretty fun so far. And I like that I'm going to be working on a game again. I think that'll be nice. I should probably close some of these things, huh? I am a little surprised. I wonder if people are watching on YouTube right now. Let's go find out. Yes, the mute site. Where does it even show the chat or viewer count? Oh, 10 watching now. Okay, hi YouTubers. Yeah. So like I said, if anyone has any, software engineering, career questions, anything like that. And by the way, if this sort of thing interests you and you're not already aware, I do mentoring on stream. I'm not saying this because I'm offering my services, but the people to whom I've already offered my services, I do videos every, pretty much every week and a half sort of thing. So the next one is going to be March 20th, which is a week from today. And then the Friday right after that. And then a couple weeks because April 1st is another important day. I have always prioritized April Fools. And if you look at the April Fools command, there's a document with everything in it. And 2024 is a question mark for all of you, but it's not a question mark for me. And I know what I'm doing. Oh, I'll put be on Twitch at, I need to pick the time, add time, 10 a.m. April 1st. Do I need to pick the time zone, I guess? GMT -7. What is it? Can someone tell me, does this show up localized for you? If I paste this document in chat? Like for anyone who's not in Seattle, I guess, does it show as 10 a.m. for you or does it show as a localized time? Because maybe because I put a time zone there, shows as 10 a.m. Okay, hang on. Let me remove the, whoops, no, wait. Delete time zone. Okay, now what does it show as? It specified PDT the first time, yeah. But now does it show localized for you or does it still show 10 a.m.? Still same? Oh, man. What does that other one do? Use current time zone? Oh, okay. Well, fine. Whatever then. Oh, that's as good as I can do for now. I'm not going to do any better than that. Thank you for answering, by the way. Oh, hey, I missed a couple of things, I guess. Curious, do you consider those coding boot camps that promise you to get ready for a job from zero experience in a matter of months a scam? Seems like most of the people here doing them feel lost and can't find employment. I don't think they're a scam. No, I think it all probably comes down to the specific coding boot camp. So I gave a talk at a boot camp once, and some of the people did seem to know what they were doing. Now, granted, the way that these boot camps work is they're teaching you a very thin slice of technologies. So usually it's a front end language, usually it's a back end language, and usually it's like some framework, and that's kind of it, I think. I don't think you learn a ton about all different concepts of computer science. And even if you did, I think there's only so much you can do when you're learning full time for, let's say, 2 months. So I don't think it's a scam, but I don't think it's the complete picture. As long as you go in thinking this is going to prepare me for a very specific kind of job, and then from there I still have a lot of learning to do, I think it's fine. Now, that said, I'm sure there are scams out there. I mean, I think there are anything that is successful in any part of any life thing you can imagine will have a scam equivalent of it somewhere if it's successful. So like people are calling out car warranties and IRS scams, and like there's got to be a boot camp out there that's just to take your money. And yeah. Did you work in the Scrum framework methodology? What did you think about it? What's the best way to manage a project according to you? Oh man, project management isn't something I've ever really had to come up with other than for my own projects you've seen on stream. And so official Scrum methodology, I feel, is having stand-ups where it's very brief updates from people and blockers that they have. And then it's like the whole sprint style of, 2 weeks, get tasks, assign or estimate points. And then ideally there's some amount of tracking that happens too. Like what are your bug trajectories and task trajectories. So if you're following official Scrum, which I don't know if I've ever really totally done, but I've done close enough, I think it's fine. I think it can work. I think people lack the ability to estimate large things. So if you say, hey, I want to make World of Warcraft, how long is it going to take? People will probably give wildly different estimates. And there are a lot of paradoxes around estimates. I used to know the name of this. Parkinson's law. This is a good one if you've never seen this. No, wait. This isn't the one I was thinking of, but this is also a good one. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. This was part of it that I wanted to talk about, which is you can estimate, hey, something will take 10 days, and then it might actually take 10 days, but not because it needed to, but because you estimated it would take 10 days. There's another one that was like even law where even if you know the estimate, it's wrong. I forgot what it was called. Hofstadter's law. Yeah. It always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. So this is another kind of interesting thing about estimates. And so this is where I think Scrum comes in and says, okay, well, whatever. Can you estimate for a week or two? And then can you just break down tasks to the point where you can fit it into a week or two? And yeah, I think that generally works. For me, for project management, I mean, like I said, you've seen what I do on the stream. I think it all comes down to what does the team want and what works well. And I think starting with something like sprints is probably a good way to tackle things. Can you reference a Google Calendar entry? They have proper time zone handling. There's a site I used to use that would let me, that would link to it in your current time zone. And I just couldn't find it earlier very quickly. Yeah. However, the time it does show you GMT -7. There's a large amount of variety in bootcamp quality. My girlfriend went through one and managed to get a job at Bloomberg and then Starbucks. Does limit your initial learnings and skill set. Yeah, the variety is something I hadn't considered too much either because I don't know too much about them. I just saw that one that I went and gave a talk at, and it seemed like they were really focused on, I want to say like JavaScript, React, and probably like a database technology and probably, Node.js on the back end or something. They were probably tackling one of those like the common stacks that you see, like MERN. I don't even remember what this stands for anymore. What's the M? It's a database, right? Mongo. E is probably Express. R is React, and N is Node. I don't even know if that's what this is all for, but yeah, so something like that. There's some framework that's common enough and has been proven to work. Enterprise driven for specific jobs and not a great deal of knowledge. Boot campers usually lack the ability to adapt themselves to new tech stacks too. Well, and look, I don't think this is a commentary on the people who go to boot camps, and I don't think it's a commentary on the boot camps themselves. or at least not necessarily. I think it's just like, look, if you're taught a slice of something, you're not going to understand the complete picture of that thing right off the bat. And that's fine. And so if you ever do have someone joining your job, maybe a coworker you get and they were at a boot camp, I would say, ideally treat them the same way you would treat anybody else. And if you find out they're from a boot camp and you're like, oh, that explains everything or whatever, like it's like cut them some slack, right? They might have been in a career they didn't like. Maybe they were working as I don't know, whatever, something else. And they were just like, I want to be in software. And that could have been their path that they took. This is why I say always remember the human elements behind all of this. We're all people. Most of us have feelings, not the sociopaths out there. I work as the sole engineer for a medium-sized company. My project consists of, is this Windows presentation framework? Yeah. WPF applications as well as web applications, mostly private in-house repos. I feel like I'm starting to develop bad habits since I don't have anyone to do code review. Oh man, really? Any tips for auditing your own code? Okay, so a couple things. One, can you instill a code review culture? And barring that, the ideas I have are kind of the same as what you probably started to be using, which is some static analysis. And how do you audit your own code? I mean, I guess you could consider something like fuzz testing. I guess, you get into a lot of testing stuff. Fuzz testing, unit testing, some integration tests. That's kind of it as far as code quality, right? If you can't rely on other people to look at your code, it's have tools look at it and then write tests for your code. And then, anytime you find a bug, be like, why did I write that bug in the first place? Was it that I didn't know something? Was it that I made a bad assumption? How could I stop myself from doing this in the future? Yeah. Which job do you think will be affected sooner because of AI? Programmer/dev or cybersecurity guy? You mean of those two? I mean, I think there's a little bit of a false premise in the question, although I think I understand the spirit of what you're saying anyway. But I will say this, programming has already been affected. And so I don't know if cybersecurity was also affected, but I assume so. I think pretty much AI has affected everything already. Now, has it taken over for a lot of these jobs already? No, not completely. But I was just showing this earlier that Copilot can write pretty good functions for me already. And everyone's talking online about Devin, and I haven't looked into it yet, but my understanding is that it can act like a software engineer. So I don't think we're too far off from humans being more just kind of guides toward what the requirements are for a program. And then AI coding a lot of it and humans just kind of fixing up the last little bit or maybe gluing some things together. As far as cybersecurity goes, I see it all as the same general kind of skill set that an AI could have. If you can write code, then you can find flaws in code. And so I think they're both going to be kind of affected equally. Have I worked with Kanban? Is that common in the real world? I see Kanban and sprints as kind of similar. I don't know the official Kanban methodology, but I always think of these, agile boards and stuff. And I see this as just being a visual way of doing sprints, but I think Kanban itself is a philosophy of how to approach project management. Do they say what this is? This is not helpful here. Scheduling system for lean manufacturing. Limit buildup of excess inventory. Okay, I guess I'd have to look at this specifically for software engineering. Yeah, like I said, I'm not totally sure what this is officially, but is it common? I mean, the boards are common. Like I use it for a lot of the things that I do now. So this is a Kanban board as far as I understand. But yeah, like I said, I'm a little fuzzy on the terminology exactly. And even Scrum, it's like I think Scrum has an official thing that no one ends up really adhering to. I think they use a modified version. It's sort of like when people play Monopoly casually, they all have their own rules that they put into it. And sure, there's an official rule set. If you're learning something that's very targeted at a few specific technologies, you're effectively gambling on your ability to find exactly that job. Yeah, I'd argue that no matter what your skill set is, you're gambling on that skill set landing you a job, and you're just broadening your chances if you have a wider skill set. But I think it's easy enough to predict what some jobs will need. It's like if I were to just go searching for jobs right now and I just type in like front end developer, I bet a lot of them are going to be web focused, right? In fact, maybe the majority, and not all of them for sure. But if they're going to be web focused, then from there you could be like, okay, well, what's the most common stuff that people use? And it's probably going to be like, okay, TypeScript, JavaScript. And if you talk about frameworks, it's like, man, you look at React and Angular and whatever else. And I know that's what you're saying. It's like, okay, you can still play this by probability. That's still gambling. And yeah, I think that's kind of true regardless of whether you're doing a small set of things or a large set of things. Regarding bootcamp thing, I guess that makes sense. Sounds like it teaches them how to do X, Y, Z using technologies A or B. Personally find the most successful thing is to learn how to think rather than just accomplish a certain task a certain way. I agree, but I think that everyone has to start somewhere. And if you think about, so I have a college degree, so I can talk about at least what that looked like. And there was essentially a programming 101 class, and it was things like, here's an if statement, and here's when you use a for loop. And you start from the basics, right? And then with at least a computer science degree, you end up covering more theoretical things than I assume a boot camp would cover. So you will learn about things like time complexity, networking, graphics. And yet that's still how all of this sort of starts. And then you build on the knowledge. And I think boot camp is just a different starting point. Some jobs do lock you in hard. Previous work was so far removed from normal development, I needed to throw away a lot of knowledge. Yeah, there was this thing at Google, at least, where people would say something like, you know, there's no way you could totally quantify this, but like, oh, 20% of your knowledge will transfer. And I think this happens at a lot of places. Technology is just a wide term at this point. And if you consider even just development, it's like, how many languages are currently popularly used? And it's not all of them. It's not like it's, 50, but Stack Overflow Survey 2024, you could go, whatever. Let's just click this one. You can find out which ones, they have something here. Sure. This. So here are, I guess, well, this is desired and admired. Well, anyway, you can see the ones that are further to the right are the more desired and admired languages. And so how many are really all that popular? Like maybe 20-ish. So you end up using a language and in a certain way and with certain technologies surrounding it, whatever for source control that you use, for continuous integration or deployment, what you're even deploying with or on, what cloud you're using. And that vertical slice through all of those things then forms your day-to-day, which varies only a little bit in technologies over the course of your time at a job, depending on how much they cover on that job. And then you go to a new job and they use a completely different vertical slice. They're on Azure instead of AWS, and instead of using whatever MySQL for a database, they're using Oracle. And yeah. So I don't expect that the knowledge ever completely transfers, but I also don't ever think that any knowledge is bad for you to learn. Well, let me rephrase that, I guess. Any tech knowledge. So things like learning a programming language or something, not like learning, how your childhood dog died or something. That knowledge might be bad to learn. But generally any skills that you pick up or any frameworks you learn, like even if you never end up using it, I think it still helps you somehow. Any advice on how to deal with questions from the team, having to do code reviews, having to test team member pull requests, taking away from your time to work on your assigned task, to the point where you barely work on your assigned tickets, context switching constantly. This could be described as like a job. And maybe that job is something like, I don't know, like tech lead almost. That's sort of like the job you described, which is talking about the team, doing code reviews, maybe not testing other team members' pull requests. I don't think that's something I would consider part of a tech lead, but like, setting the direction for the team. And so if that's your job, then I would say there's just find a new job. It doesn't sound like that's your job. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be asking this question. So it sounds like this other stuff is stuff you're doing on top of what you're doing, and maybe you're not asked to do it. So I would say, yeah, are you asked to do this? If you didn't do this, what would happen? How do you train the team to balance the load of these tasks? And yeah, and generally, and so with an issue like this, I think, how do I fix the systemic issue? And if I see things like this, having to test team members' pull requests, I would say we need to set a new policy, which is that people have to include tests in their code. This is something that is not completely alien to people. Like, it's reasonable to have tests, and some people do require a certain amount of coverage with new tests or new code that's added. And even on the last team I worked on at Google, this started to be the culture. So Android Studio was made as, I think, an Eclipse plugin back in like 2013 or something. And so it's about a decade old. And when you start any software, typically your processes are not very rigid and they're not very mature. And that's so that you can move fast and you can figure out, will this product even work? Then at some point it proves itself. Android Studio has however many, hundreds of thousands or millions of users. And then they start needing more processes, because when you have even, 10 bugs and anyone can run into one of them, it's like, that'll degrade the user image of your software. So at some point they said, okay, here's what we're doing. We're going to require tests. And if you don't have a test, you better have a really good reason why you don't need a test. So for example, if you had a, this like copyright 2023 at the bottom of your code and you update it to say 2024, yeah, you don't need a test for that. But if you were to add a new feature, you better have tests. So that's the kind of thing to fix a systemic issue. Is you shouldn't be testing team members' pull requests unless it's somehow specifically your job and you like doing that. But otherwise, that should be load balance to the team. Having to do code reviews, I don't think that's actually a problem. I think if you're doing all of the code reviews, it's a problem. But having to do them in the first place is not a problem. And having to deal with questions from the team, I also don't see as being a problem. So I would just look at it as everybody needs some help. And if you find yourself helping them with all the same things over and over, that you might want to have like a brown bag lunch session, and you say something like, hey, we're going to cover unit tests. And, don't point blame or anything. Just say, I think we should focus more on testing as a team. And it struck me that maybe people don't know how, or they don't know what questions to ask. So this is a session where I'm going to teach you how I do this sort of thing. And then you say, okay, here's some code I have. How would you test this? And people raise their hand around the room. They say, oh, I'd add a test case for this. What if you passed in this parameter? You're like, okay, that's good. What framework would we use for this? Maybe people say a bunch of different things, and you're like, okay, well, we should settle on one, and here's what the rest of the code uses. So let's use that one, and here's how it works. You just keep going from there. And then you'll find that the team will probably be more willing to work with you after that, or at least having some foundation and then having a policy in place. And so it's just a matter of getting other people on board. I think this speaks to a sort of larger company thing, which is maybe like phenomenon here, which is you can basically do anything as long as you follow through. So if you want to change the company culture, it wouldn't just be like, okay, ping somebody else and say, hey, I think this should change, and then stop. It's like, hey, get people to agree and then follow up on it. And it could be anything. It could be introducing testing. It could be improving code quality. It could be changing how load is distributed across your teammates. Disagree on skills. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying what you learned since it didn't transfer got you stuck in technology. Okay, so I see what you're saying, and I'm not saying you can't be stuck in certain technology, I guess. I guess what I'm trying to say, though, is the stuff you learned about this work that you did is, even if it was bad or got you stuck, is at least something not to do in the future. And so this kind of goes back to that thing I said about the crazy bugs that I had. I mentioned how I was making JSON web tokens that just had like ID 1, 2, 3, 4. And I learned a couple of things what not to do. It's like, in the future, make this a UUID. And in the future, when you roll back, don't ever reuse your IDs or invalidate your tokens or something. So yeah, even when something seemed to have been a bad experience, you can still learn a lot from it. Yeah, I do agree that everything you've ever learned makes you better at everything else, even if only ever so incrementally. Never regretted learning a thing, and I do think many people spend a lot of time worrying about learning the wrong thing. I think where people get in trouble is the assumption that they can learn some few things and then stop. Yeah, I don't think you can do that in tech. Learn a few things and then stop. I think there are other careers where you probably can just kind of learn something and do things that way the rest of your life. I think the other thing is I don't think there's a wrong thing, but I think there can be a wrong way of learning. And I talked about this more completely in, where is it? This one, how the learning curve feels. So quick summary of this video, if you don't want to watch it, is I, about a year ago, switched from QWERTY to Colmac on this keyboard. And I started doing it by using a typing test that was just the top 200 English words. If I go to this in an incognito window, it'll probably work. Yeah, so here. So you can see hold, again, around, word, nation. These are words, and I type all of these words, but I don't type them like this. I've never typed a sentence that is hold, again, around, word, nation. And so like this is not learning in the correct way exactly. And it's not totally wrong, but it's like there is a better way to learn that. Hey, Wendy. Wendy, do you have any career questions for me? Can I teach you how to be a better artist? Wendy should be immediately insulted if he wasn't already. All right, so Wendy, you've been doing it wrong. You're holding the stylus backwards when you type or when you write on your tablet. So you've been writing with the stylus coming out this way. It should actually be coming out the back of your hand, and you just draw like you're drawing with a crayon. It'll improve your artwork about 17%. Yeah, when you write on your tablet, you write that artwork out, you know? Right with the wavy lines and stuff. Real hard time appreciating the right way without actually having experienced some of the problems. Yep. And this is so crucial. There's this saying, something like any idiot can learn from their own mistakes, but it takes a smart person to learn from somebody else's mistakes. And a lot of times you don't understand why certain wisdom was shared. So in this case, for example, I said, hey, I had IDs that were just numbers, and they were auto incrementing numbers handled by the database. And so you might think, oh, wait, what's the problem with that? They're low numbers typically, so they're easy to type out. You can figure out exactly how many users you have. There are some benefits to this sort of thing. But then what are the downsides? And I can explain the downsides to you. And I can tell you like, okay, now clients can't generate their own IDs and trust that they don't have collisions elsewhere. You can tell which user IDs are already taken. Maybe you can discern some information from that. There could be a lot of things. I can give you the pros and cons, and you make a decision that is sort of counter to what my conclusion might have been, because maybe you don't treat those cons in the same way. And that's the whole, any idiot can learn from their own mistakes. Then later down the line, you found out you shot yourself in the foot, and you think, oh, that's why I was told to do that way a long time ago. And that brings us to the real wisdom here, which is always like share the rationale for doing or not doing something when you're teaching someone. So a lot of times, maybe not a lot of times, but I'll see on YouTube, there will be a tutorial for something, and it'll be like, hey, how do I type a message in Twitch chat? And someone will be like, okay, click here in the input and then type your message, and then don't click the chat button, just press enter. And they won't say why, like don't click the chat button. And who knows, it could be anything. You could fill in the reason. Maybe it's like, oh, it deletes it from the message history or something, or there's a chance you accidentally hit the shield mode button, and so that's why you shouldn't hit the chat button. It's like, just share why you should or shouldn't do something. And that way people can figure out for themselves, like, is that important for me? Not totally as the programming meta changes over time, but people really stay true to the same processes over long stretches of time. Hinders their ceiling tremendously, but keeps them afloat. I think also learning is hard, and learning makes you vulnerable. And the less you want difficult things and vulnerability, I think the more comfortable you seem like you feel. Also, thank you for resubbing, War Eagle. I've got another about half hour, or 25 minutes. How should I deal with my manager regarding my unhappiness with my job or role? How honest can I be? And can being too honest be bad for me? Unhappy with performance review, not leading to increase in pay only after 1 year. Been more than 6 months. So how should I deal with my manager? I think the first thing you should do with a manager when you have a problem is talk to them. And if you have reason to believe that they're not going to work with you, so for example, let's say you've talked to them in the past, maybe you talked to them multiple times and they've always been like, yeah, we'll get to that, and then they don't get to that, then that's reason to believe they won't work with you. But if you don't have reason to believe they won't work with you, I would say they're your first point that you should go to. can it be bad to be too honest with them? Yes. And this all comes down to discretion and knowing people and knowing your manager and knowing yourself. Like, what does it mean to be too honest with your manager? Is it, hey, I'm unhappy with my job and I'm thinking of finding opportunities elsewhere? That kind of honesty could be totally fine to share. They might be like, I had no idea what's wrong. How do I make things better for you? Or they could be like, well, there's the door. And you're the only one who can say which you think will happen without actually talking to your manager, or maybe your coworkers could help too. But yeah, the unhappy with performance review stuff, I think this can be somewhat contentious sometimes, because even if you did a good job, sometimes there's just not the budget and they can't allocate more money to you. But yeah, I would say talk to them. If you don't feel you can talk to them, talk to maybe their manager. And if you feel like there are no routes for you to talk about this sort of thing, then, I mean, again, this is like what I said earlier. You have all the inputs. You know, then I feel I'm doing good work. Maybe you could be convinced that the performance review is accurate. Maybe you're not doing as good work as you think. But anyway, then you'll have the inputs. You'll know how they feel about you. You'll know how you feel about the job. You'll know who you can talk to, and you can make a decision from there. Not everyone cares nearly as much as you do. Yeah, that's a good point. There are some people who see it as like, okay, yeah, code has bugs. There's no way to get rid of them all, so we'll just fix them when they come up. Yeah. Jumped right into bachelor's thesis. Also, I missed one other sub. Who was that? Wendy. Yeah, thank you. Also, 1 year. Whew. To be honest, I'm far from a good artist. I'm competent enough and consistent, which works for me sometimes. I think you're a good artist, and you're certainly way better than I am. I am what they call a bad artist. I'm what they call a non-artist. Yeah, hackers can enumerate the IDs. Yep, and this is a corn keyword. Yeah. Welcome, color screen. What does the chat button do? Very interesting, even though I don't understand everything yet. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of kind of different content over the last 3 months, and I have the... Was it Wendy that did the thumbnail? The thumbnail for what? Because Wendy has done some artwork. Wendy did the Adam Keeb emote, and he also did a picture that was shown on Discord recently. Oh no, the last video was done by an AI. Yeah, that was ChatGPT, I think. Anyway, going back to what Peplon was talking about, I have this journal that talks about what I've been working on for the last few months on stream, and you can just scroll down and look at these bullet points. That's all. And a lot of it says Abbott. This is the bot that I was working on. And then we got into some other things like Godot and a Code Jam and Jump Royale. What's probably going to happen more over the next week or so is game design. And then I'm hoping to transition from that into game development again and have that kind of be my main activity for a while. And then the side activities are going to be mentoring, probably not group mentoring like this, mentoring and interviews. And so the very first interview, as I've been mentioning, is going to be in 36 minutes. So I hope you're looking forward to that, everybody. It sustains him. Hey, Wendy, you feeling better than yesterday? Do we get to play one more game? Yeah, you will in maybe like 25 minutes or something. And then I just need a little bit of time to set up. But yeah, I'm excited. I was preparing interview questions yesterday. And then I was wondering, like, how do real interviewers prepare questions? I am a fake interviewer right now. Adam's a reporter. Had a crushing headache for some reason and tons of work. I also had a crushing headache yesterday. Although I guess I just realized now it was two days ago. I slept it off and hit the work today with laser sharp focus. Nice. Nice. Also, man, I just do not think about this stuff. I had a headache and I was talking to my wife. I'm like, oh man, my head's been hurting for hours. She's like, have you taken ibuprofen? I'm like, that's a really good idea. And then I took it and everything was better. I just never thought to do that. Just hit them with the stream of consciousness word salad. I wonder how far I could get with an interview like that. I was thinking of like goofy things I could do, which I don't think is a good idea, but yeah, goofy things I could do. I think I need to know someone's sense of humor pretty well, but then also I need to consider what might be taken by the audience. And yeah, anyway, I feel like there's a little bit of a minefield there sometimes. I just said I can't be bothered to get up, and then 3 hours later I went to sleep. She didn't get you the medicine, Wendy. Definitely had to be reminded Tylenol actually exists. Yeah. That's the sort of thing that people think, oh, hey, this is just ingrained in everybody, right? When you're thirsty, get a drink. If your posture is bad, fix your posture. But it is not ingrained in everybody. You say you don't use QWERTY? Yeah, I use Colmac. That all comes back to that video that I shared here, which again, don't feel the need to watch if you don't want to. But I use something called Colmac DH. And the why is because I wanted to see what minimizing my finger travel would do. So QWERTY, where's that QWERTY versus Colmac like calculator? There's something that calculates finger travel, and anyway, this probably doesn't matter. Yeah. The point is that at least for most English, what's the plural of corpus? Is it corpora? I know I'm getting like super far off now. Yeah, it is, except for it's corpora. Anyway, when you're typing English corpora, you are gonna not be benefited by QWERTY as much. That was perhaps the most inarticulate sentence I could have said. So yeah, I just wanted to try it out. It's been almost a year. I don't think it's been great. Like I haven't really improved over QWERTY yet. Yeah, between two ferns is something I'd love to do. And actually, I was debating on asking Windy if he'd be up for that style of interview. I think he would be. She just mocked my weakness. I see. Is one of you a Highlander by any chance? Intern interview question that a previous company used. You've been given an unlimited budget to technically enhance a premium brand car. What do you add and why? Some of the best worst answers were like, I'd add a bathtub. I'd add a bathtub. For a car? I don't think I even get that part. I maybe I've heard of some vehicles that have a hot tub in them. Maybe I could see that, but a bathtub? What style is that? What is it about? Try to transform current issues at work and ask the interview who they would act in this situation. CI build is, oh, I see. Try to ask them how they would react. CI build is red. How would you approach the devs or business gives unclear requirements? How do you get more info from them and so on? It's nice to see how they react and gives me new impulses. Yeah, I like that kind of interview. I think interviewing is so difficult because you want a clear signal if someone is good or bad for your team and for the job. And how you get that has changed a lot over the years, or how we thought we got it. You know, originally, like years ago, Google was asking brain teaser questions, like how many piano tuners are there in New York City? And they just want to see how you thought. That's what it was supposed to be, right? So, oh, well, there are this many people in New York City, and maybe this many people have pianos, and this many people want to tune them. And so they're like, okay, cool, you drill down in the question. And now I remember Google was like, do not ask brain teaser kinds of questions anymore. Like they don't give a good signal, and they have some way of determining that they didn't. And so they wanted a more standardized process. I think questions like this can be interesting. And I always wonder, is it fair? Is it unfair? And I learned a lot about bias when I was at Google. They say the only way to, well, I guess this is probably pretty obvious, but the only way to remove unconscious bias is to become conscious of it first. You can't remove something you don't know exists. So you need to first become aware that you even have it. And they had a bunch of examples, and they had a bunch of examples for how to do this with interviewing and things like if you read their resume and you see that they're from a certain company or a certain school or a certain country, even that, you know, you shouldn't be jumping to conclusions for that. So maybe you shouldn't even be reading that information. And yeah, I wonder about questions like this. I think these are fair questions. I don't think they're biased questions. I mean, these are things that happen on the job. But yeah, there are totally different cultural answers you might have. It's like, how direct are you? And I used to know there was like a term for this. There are, I think, either languages or cultures out there that treat directness differently. It must be cultures. I don't know if it's baked into any languages, like human languages. But I think Western cultures are more direct than Eastern cultures. And I don't know. Anyway, those are the kinds of things where I wonder, does that factor into this? Like devs give you unclear requirements or something. Depending on your culture, you might approach them or you might paper over the problem, and it might just be a cultural thing. I'm kind of rambling on about this at this point. Standing wheel for the driver who needs to stand up. Just like a big pirate steering wheel. Problem solving and reasoning. Yeah. 7 piano tuners. You're actually spot on. Yeah. You must have been in New York City when you were getting all those Pop Tarts. I think EVs should come with coffins so I can be buried. Don't know what I'm talking about. That was a heck of a roller coaster in 2 sentences. The only questions I can ever come up with. I kind of wish I could come up with more traditional stuff. Yeah, the kinds of questions. Oh, I guess I did. There were 2 kinds of interviews I did at Google. They were always the on-site ones, but they were either behavioral ones or they were the coding ones. I think there was another kind. Oh yeah, I think it was like system design interviews. I didn't do these. I did these ones. And I liked the behavioral stuff, but you never really have a gauge for am I doing it correctly? You could see other interviewers' feedback and you could kind of see like, okay, did they pick up on the same things that I did? But there was only one behavioral interview, so you could never see if they said the same things about the same candidate. Nothing I'm interested in such a call. I have the story of their life, so I already have the. I see. Yeah. Just recently, I read a couple of comments at Reddit from tech interviewers claiming they switched their whole process so they wouldn't make a single technical question. Instead, they just had a conversation to get a grasp of the person on a personal level. Talked about tech in general, their passions. They're happy with the people they'd hired. That is interesting. You know what though? Unless they're tracking this in a very like data-driven way, how are these employees performing? Do they have enough of a sample size here? It can be anecdotal, and that can be a little bit tough. Because it could be that they just got lucky, right? They hired people who were technical geniuses and they just happened to also like them. And who knows, maybe this system flops when you scale it up or something. Scream at the person as loud as possible without warning and see how they react. This is like an Eric Andre style interview. Tend to always ask open-ended questions to get the candidate talking. You learn a lot when they just ramble. I'd rather hire a person who's willing and has capability to learn than someone gifted but non-communicative. Yeah, and I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. Given the choice between a very skilled jerk and not a totally unskilled newbie who's more willing to talk to people, but like a less skilled person, they'd usually go with a less skilled person. Yeah. Hey, hello, cool Chris. How you doing? So, to everyone who's still here, we got about maybe 10 more minutes of ask me anything about software engineering if you want, and then I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to shift into interviewing. I'm doing very well. It's been a good day. I spent this morning starting design on a new game, which maybe we'll end up developing, and then we've been doing group mentoring for the last couple hours, and then I had the very first interview today with a software engineer at Microsoft. It's interviews, so let me alias interview to interviews, and then let's try running that, I guess. Oops. There. Yes, this finally got to it. Okay, so yeah. So if anyone wants to also ask questions to Amanda, and by the way, I'm not saying like without knowing anything more than just software developer at Microsoft, but based on the interview that we have today. So I plan on doing about maybe like 45 minutes and then looking over to Discord and seeing are there questions there. Oh, I should probably just say this. Ask your questions here. Now let me get the link to that. Copy link. Discord. Her social links are here. Yeah. Doc isn't public. Oh, it isn't. Whoops. Thank you for telling me. There we go. Gift restarted a point. I'll shoot you a DM on Discord. Might have something for you that can be cool. So yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, my DMs are open. Some people are really good people judges. Simple conversation might be enough to understand if it's a fit or not. Truth is, tech-wise, you're never going to get a clear image without any exercise. Yeah, and you know what really kind of pointed this out to me is you never know how people get their code written. What I assumed was that people are writing it like me. They are opening up a file, they're typing out some functions here, and they're, like, okay, what do I do here to fill this out? That is not true for everybody. A lot of people cobble together what they find online. Some people get other people to write their code. Some people just kind of copy paste what exists. Some people just kind of don't write code somehow and always find like, oh, I'm swamped with work. Can someone else take this task? I've only heard stories about that last one. I haven't actually seen that, although maybe it's happened and I just wasn't aware. But yeah, when you're in that situation and you find out that, wait a second, even if I look through their GitHub, how do I know that they wrote the code? And now with AI, it's going to be even harder to tell. They are not. No, they are. They should be. I don't think I'd change that. What's the purpose of the interview? Training for her? Are you doing headhunter work? Okay, so this is, when I say interview, unfortunately, this is an overloaded term. Picture like a talk show, not like a technical interview. So it's more like, what do you do for a living? Do you like cats? I'm not going to ask that question, but these sorts of questions, and not like, can you write quicksort? But I think this is why I chose doing group mentoring before this, because I think this fits well with the content we're about to talk about. I want to ask her about her career. I want to ask her about like, hey, how's content creation going for you? I think it'll be pretty interesting. And it's cool to just kind of hang out and do this stuff. Yeah, very similar to what I did with Lana. For those wondering, there's the podcast link. Wendy was also on the show. She's been running a show called Headshot. What's it called? Headshot Podcast. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it was podcast, but I want to make sure I wasn't advertising it wrong. Yeah. Forgot. Nope, wait. Say coming back to streaming wasn't an option. Would you have stayed at Google or switched companies? And I forgot to ask you to elaborate as to why. Well, since you forgot to ask me, I don't have to answer why. Would I have stayed at Google or switched companies? Probably switch. And since you didn't ask why, I won't say anything about that. No, the reason why, I think, okay, look, I was feeling unfulfilled at Google. I'm pretty sure you've seen the video. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's right here. But I was feeling unfulfilled there, and I don't think it's worthwhile to stay in a place you're feeling unfulfilled unless you think something's going to change. And I don't think I was in the right mindset to get things to change. However, that's because I knew I could go back to streaming. If I couldn't go back, my mindset might have been different enough. And this is why they say necessity is the mother of invention. Had I stayed and had I been unhappy, I would have had the necessity to fix that unhappiness. But because I didn't have to stay, I didn't fix it. So who knows what would have happened. I think Google had a lot of opportunities though. And so I'm changing my answer to a red question mark. I might have stayed. Yeah. I think I was set up pretty well in the org. I think I had a pretty good spot on the team. My manager really liked me. And I think I would have been able to grow at the company. So yeah, maybe I would have. Can you imagine, Leonard? Do you like cats? No, just end call. Sorry, guess we're not doing an interview today. Do you ever have any vague or specific feeling of making it when working at Google? When you say making it, you mean like feeling super successful? I decided after about maybe 1 year that I needed to switch. And I think it took another maybe 6 months or something. No, was it 6 months? No, it's 4 months. So at the 1 year, 4 month mark is when I switched teams. Oh, yeah. I felt that at the very beginning. Yeah. Yeah, but then there's a honeymoon phase when you're in anything new that's exciting. I mean, the most common thing people say it for is relationships, I think, where it's like, oh, this person can do no wrong and they're the best. And I think the same thing happens when you start at a new company that you're excited about. You're like, oh, this is awesome. This is everything I ever wanted. And then you start to see some warts. And, there's maybe this perception that working at a big company, the standards are just way higher for everything. And in some sense, they totally are. But in other senses, they aren't. And when you expect them to be higher across the board and they're not, then it can be a little surprising. So I do think I think the way I've said this in the past is the average person at Google seemed smarter than the average person outside of Google. But that doesn't necessarily mean they were a good worker or liked their jobs or something. So it doesn't help to just be smart. They were all capable, but were they, acting on that capability? And myself included, probably. Like, I don't think I was probably doing a great job toward the end of my first team. I guess I'm calling myself smart. I'm complimenting myself without even realizing it, but also putting myself down. Big company equals overwhelming politics and bureaucracy, but also more budget. Yeah, I think it's pretty true. I can't argue there. I think when you have any more than like 2-3 people, it's hard to come to an agreement. And when you have a company with like 100,000 people, then you need some sense of hierarchy. You'll have people disagreeing. You'll have, all sorts of things happening. Coming from a non-Fang focused country but with a very high technical ability, what would you look for in a company if Fang wasn't an option? It's sort of hard to say because at any given point, I'm looking at what is it that I want now. So yeah, what do I want now? And what would I want if I were in the situation where this question mattered? And I hope you're taking this the right way. I don't mean this is a dumb question or something. I just mean I'm not looking for a job right now. So if I were looking for a job, I think what I'd be looking for is, again, working with kind of smart, capable, caring people who I think share some of the same values as me. I really, really appreciate diversity on teams. I think getting different viewpoints it's just been proven time and time again to be fantastic. So I would want some of the same values, but different perspectives. So for example, I value training and educating people, and I would want other people to have that same value, but the way they approach it could be totally different. But I wouldn't want them to be like, no, people go just teach yourselves all this stuff. Like, I like the more collaborative culture there. I think I'd also want to care about the product. I'd also want the technology to be something kind of interesting enough. I think the hardest part for me, and I'm getting close to the end of how much I can talk about this stuff only because I've got to go take a break soon. I think the hardest part for me is how do I get myself to care as much as what I care about here? So I am carving out a very unique path with my skill set towards something that hopefully works out. And by something, I mean like content creation, right? I've been trying to grow YouTube. I've been streaming on Twitch. I'm designing a game right now. And like all of those are using the skills that I have and the things that I'm interested in. Like I wouldn't probably use a mini PC at a company like Google, and I wouldn't have an opportunity to look into all the different kinds of things I look into. So yeah, I think it's like I'm just listing random things in a perfect world, but something that uses all my skills and that I'm interested in. Wow, you're very vocal. Can you hear her meowing? Did I work in parallel with product managers? How technical were they? I did work with some product managers, yeah. And I would say they were like technical enough to do their jobs. I don't think they would have taken over as coders, but I think the product managers were pretty good. Cat tax. I showed the picture from earlier when she was in the sunbeam. This one. Now she's over there. Okay, so one last thing really quick. I'm going to go take my last break, and I want to ask a quick poll here. Green screen or natural background? Green it up. And Natty. I don't know why I'm typing like this. This is not me. All right. What do you vote for? Do you want the green screen up, or do you want me to tear this down and we just have the wall in the background? Because this is going to be for the interview. And if it's a green screen, I'm going to have like, this as the background. It'll be this like blue void. Where's the cat screen option? Yeah, not possible. All right, I think I'm leaning more toward just no green screen. Okay, cool. All right, I've seen enough. Thank you for voting. I'm going to take my last break, and then when we get back, we're going to start prepping for the interview. So thank you all for being here so far. I do hope you'll stay around for the interview. It's the first time I'm doing this. I think it'll be interesting. I'm very excited. So let's go play some Jump Royale. Is it jump time? It's jump time. Hey everybody, close the game. Wow, the cat is very loving right now. Do you want to be on stream? Do you want to step all over my keyboard? Oh yeah, I gotta take down the green screen. Surprise! It was me all along. Okay. The cat is very intrigued. How did this wall just disappear? Okay, so how do I want to do this? I have 10 minutes. I have the mentoring prep thing that I did. I think I want something like this. Switch to setting up for mentoring so people can only hear me. I probably should do that. What does this look like? Okay, no, we're not doing that yet. All right, take care, Wendy. Thanks for dropping in. Glad to hear you're doing better. And thanks for the sub. So virtual camera, do I even need this? I think I do. But I need it to be set to a different scene this time. Yeah. And stuff like Devin has been blowing up. Did you check similar tools? No, I haven't even looked at Devin yet. I need to probably do that. Let me write that down. Content. Look into Devin, the AI SWE. Oh yeah, I gotta change my title and stuff too. Oh man, so much I gotta do. Okay, so this is probably not gonna be all that chat interactive, the interview we're about to do here. Strictly for the stream, strictly business expense. I suggest you invest in an elaborate cat wall on the wall behind you. Strictly for business. That would be pretty cool. Actually, I guess I can zoom out now, huh? Whoops, wrong direction. All right, is that good? Yeah, it's pretty good. This is for the stream, you see. Yes, I see. I see very clearly. All right, so update the title on Twitch. Probably should update on YouTube as well. All right, interviewing Amanda, a software engineer at Microsoft and a content creator. Okay. Say done. Should I update the live stream title? I think YouTube stores it with, yeah, it's already got that. All right, that's fine. All right, so normally I'd have Yada open. Normally I'd have a document open. I guess I do need a document open. I guess it's got to be this, the interview question document. Is it happening now or did it take place already? It's happening in 7 or 8 minutes. Also, normally I do audio tests, but I feel like the audio's just kind of always been fine. So chat, just let me know if it's not fine, okay? I'm going to try not to read chat too much, but that's going to be the one thing I'll look for. And yeah, put like panic basket or I don't know, something if something's wrong. And I'll just assume things are fine if nobody's saying anything. So clear I can hear your breath. I don't mean my audio. I mean Amanda's audio. I know everyone can hear me just fine. Okay, so here's what we got for this. So today command has been updated. I guess I should also update this on. Let me update this on YouTube as well. I guess I can only really fit her Instagram here. Yeah. I don't think it matters for YouTube. I don't think someone's gonna be typing commands there. Okay, so that stuff's done. This is done. This is done. All right, question document I've got open. And yeah. Yeah, this is a lot easier to set up for than a mentoring thing. I should probably write instructions somewhere on this. Interview prep. Switch to a special scene. Yeah. And have Discord on right side. Will this end up on YouTube? Yeah, I'm planning on putting it on the main channel, not on Adam Mentors. I don't feel like the interviews belong there. But I'm not totally sure if I should make a third channel for this. So I kind of want to see how this does on YouTube. And since it's the first in the series, it might do better than the other ones end up doing. So yeah, I'm not totally sure what's going to happen there. Okay. Yeah, I think this is the only kind of special thing that we have. Switch to a special scene so that I don't show their cam. Yeah, I'm just kind of waiting for 3 o'clock, I guess. Although, hang on, she messaged me. Here whenever you're ready. Oh, okay. All right, well then, yeah, let me go change to this thing and I'll see setting up. Okay, and I'm gonna mute. Yeah, I'll just go set this up, and when I come back in the next few minutes or whatever, Amanda should be on stream too. All right. Chat, can you hear me? And Amanda, what are 3 words that start with M?
Oh my God. Microsoft. Music.
Microsoft Music.
Mouse.
Mouse. Okay, good. All right. So chat, how's that sound too? Because this is all I'm going to interact with you for, chat, and then I'm just talking to Amanda. Can you hear Amanda? Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm ignoring them, and we're going to kick this off. So for everyone who doesn't know, this is the first interview I have with me, Amanda, a software engineer at Microsoft and a content creator herself. And I've got some just kind of general things I wanted to talk about. How about we start with, what do you do at Microsoft?
Sure. Thank you for having me. The interview started hard already. 3 words for them. So I'm a software engineer at Microsoft. I've been working there for 4 years now, 4 years and a few months. I started in performance, but it was like briefly, like 2 months. And then I moved to Microsoft Shopping. And now it's a bit of a mix of things that I'm doing, working on mobile and also featuring Skype. So yeah, since then I became like more interested in UX and doing a lot of work there. But I like to consider myself as a full stack engineer still.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just curious about building things.
Yeah. So what got you into Microsoft? What led you there, both in terms of kind of your tech trajectory and also the company itself?
Sure. So I'm from Brazil. This is where the accent comes from. And for those who are wondering, and while I was like an undergrad, like my university was not very big, so there was not like I really didn't know it was possible to be in a big tech. Oh, your cat.
Yeah.
I need to meet her. Okay. And I didn't know like it was possible at all. And I, a friend of mine that was also in the same university, she got this opportunity. It was kind of like a random thing, and she got the opportunity to do internship at Microsoft. And then she was the one that kind of uh, asked me to apply as well and gave me like the tips that she had and everything. So that's how I decided to apply on my last year of undergrad. And for those who doesn't know, depending on which year you are in your studies, like you'll be either qualified for internship or full time. And because I was in my last year, that I would not qualify for internship.
Mhm.
You'd be like full time, straight full time. And so I applied and I interviewed. I went to the final rounds and I didn't pass. It was very tough. Because then I was like, oh, what am I gonna do now? Like and then I didn't have much like work opportunities that I was excited about, like compared to Microsoft, the other ones like in my local, like in my city was not very interesting. So I decided to continue studying.
Mhm.
Then I started my master's degree, and then I was able to study more and like knew the mistakes I had done and fix them, try it again, and then I passed for the internship. So
Okay. Okay. So do you
yeah.
place any blame on your friend for giving you tips that ended up not working out the first time?
The thing is, she did all the good tips, but I could not apply them during
Mm.
the interview. So like at some point the tips are like consistent. Like if you search for tips for your interview, you've kind of start finding the same results. But the hard part is to apply them while you are nervous, while it's not your, like native language as well, while you have to also like you have another person in front of you that is giving you signals, like it can be very subtle, like just um I don't know, like anything would scare me. I was like, what does that mean? Does he like what I'm saying? Does not?
Yeah.
And so it was hard to apply the tips, but on the next round, then I was able to apply them, and it all worked well.
Okay. Well, so I'm curious, and I'm sure some people in chat are curious. What are some of those best tips that she gave you that were good?
Okay, so my one of the best ones is like don't assume anything.
Mhm.
So for example, on my first interview, and the person that was interviewing me even gave me that feedback in the end. I don't think interviewers are giving feedback anymore.
Yeah.
But at that time they were giving feedback, so that was good. So he asked me to do like implementation involving like a tree
Mhm.
data structure. And I assumed that this data structure would come in that method that I had to implement in a certain way. And then like at the end of the interview, after like implemented everything, he was like, oh, but what if the tree was coming to you in this format, which would like break everything, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of thing like should not assume. And even like recently, like don't assume, like more recently I was also like in a type of problem that I assumed the number of items would be like a few amount of items to
Yeah.
render, like imagining a UX. But then I also got the feedback kind of like, well, what if it was like 100, 1,000, a
Yeah.
million? Like, so always thinking about scaling, because big tech, especially, right? They do things in its scale. So always think about, how this can scale and be have a good performance still. So yeah, don't assume everything was a good one. And then also like keep talking.
Yeah.
Always let them know your thought process, because I feel like when you are stuck, you tend to shut down, but then the interviewer doesn't know what is going through your mind, like, because the interviewer wants to help you.
Yeah.
So if you are like stuck, you need to let them know so they can see if they can help you somehow or give you any tips on how to continue. Uh, but if you just shut down, they cannot like just give you free tips, right? So yeah, I think these two were the most important
Okay.
for me.
Yeah. Have you been on the other side of that table? Have you interviewed people while you were at Microsoft?
Yeah, and I hate it.
You hate
I
it?
hate it. I feel like I was more nervous than the interview, like the interviewees. Um, I don't like. I don't know. I feel like when you are on an interview type of situation, it's definitely hard to know what's the best method to know if someone is good or not for the
Yeah.
job, right? And I was kind of like I was working and kind of listening to your live before, and I saw there were some comments on that, and like it's hard if you don't have any technical questions. I feel like, because then the amount of bias you can get on this process, but just like regular conversations might be hard to measure.
Yeah.
Uh, for a technical question, uh, it measures a lot of things, but also it doesn't say, it doesn't tell you everything, that you need to know.
So did you do, was this supposed to focus on technical interviewing or behavioral, or all of it? What were the kinds of
All of
interviews?
it,
All of it. Yeah.
all of it. So it was like uh, some guidance on behavioral questions that you could do. So like the guidance was like two behavioral, and then you can choose what I think it was one or two technical
Yeah.
questions.
That's intense for, I'm guessing, an hour or 45 minutes or something.
Yeah, an hour.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
an
lot.
hour.
So how many times have you done this? How many times have you interviewed?
Around 3 times, I
And it
feel
hasn't
like.
gotten any better. You still don't like it.
No,
Okay.
I don't like it.
Do you have the
Yeah,
opportunity to opt out of that by any chance, or no?
kind of. But I also wanted to learn and have this perspective of being on the other side. And I just wanted to tell people, like, I'm just like you, because I feel like when you are interviewing, put the interviewer like on this pedestal, and it's like, uh, I mean, I was scared kind of my interviewers, but then on the other side, we're like, wait, like this is not, I know what you're going through right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, definitely. And so that's what I wanted to ask a little bit more about is, did your perception of being in interviews change at all by conducting them for other people?
Yeah, it did, because uh I mean, I feel like if you are doing an interview, you have to study for the interview, especially
Mhm.
if you are undergrad or if you are like a lower level. Like I'm software engineer too. So for me, also like I have to study for the interview specifically. It's not only my experiences that will get into account, because uh, it's a totally different process, right? So even when I was interviewing someone, I
Mhm.
had to at the time I was using LeetCode to get like ideas and exercises. So LeetCode's a good place
Yeah.
to study, I guess. And then, like I would have to check other solutions. And, it's not like because I'm an interviewer, I can do those exercises the same way. So the interviewee can probably do those exercises better than me
Yeah.
if you're put side by side. But as an interviewer, I can get a better idea on thought process. So for me, that was the most important thing. Like more important than making the code run was like how they get to that solution, and if they are thinking about all the possibilities of the code that they are doing.
I see. And so are there sort of any I know you said you were somewhat more nervous than the candidate. Do you feel there's some positives that have come out of this? Do you feel like you're building more toward the fourth and the fifth interviews that you're doing?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. If I can avoid like interviewing people, I would avoid still. But if I cannot avoid it, then uh, yeah, I would just try my best to make the person, like feel calmer, especially like try to be the, like the first interviewer. So, like I can, help in that sense. But yeah, I don't know if there is anything positive that I got from
I
this. I
see.
just don't
Okay.
like
Well, I have a
it.
pro tip for you. Make a calendar appointment from 9 to 5 every day of the week for the rest of the time you're at Microsoft, and then you won't get any more interviews. They won't find a free
That's
slot.
a great idea. That's
Well,
a great idea.
so, okay, I introduced you as software engineer at Microsoft and also content creator. And you mentioned that when you were in Brazil that you didn't know that big tech was an option, or you didn't know how to get there. And then you went through your path going into your master's degree and ending up at Microsoft. And it sounds like you've been pretty happy since then. How would you suggest to other people who are in that same situation, not even necessarily just Brazil, but let's say any other country where this doesn't seem like as easy of a path, how would they follow along that path?
Yeah. So the thing is that a lot of information now it's online. Of course, it's not as available as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Because even like Microsoft and all their big techs, they cannot go everywhere, right? So like even in Brazil, I apply online. So first, you have to go to the careers website of the companies you're trying to
Yeah.
apply for. So either Google.careers, Microsoft.careers, Meta.careers, like they all have this careers website that you can go through and apply there. Of course, if you have people there that can like recommend you, that is always good. And even on LinkedIn, actually, because I one of my one of the videos I recorded was with a Microsoft recruiter, and like there's all these researches on LinkedIn that 80% of the jobs they're not posted or something like that, and then like most of the tech jobs are like people being referred
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And I can feel this happening, like, especially if you're already in the industry. If you are undergrad, then it's a bit different. I think the big techs have a good way of getting those fresh, like university students
Yeah.
uh, into it. But yeah, I mean, I guess networking is your best tool as well. Like, you never know, like I sometimes I contact people that I was not necessarily friends in college, but we know each other, we respect each other. So like I can still reach out and ask about their input or like an experience I see that you're having. I can,
Yeah.
like ask about it. So having a good network, I think that's very important if you are starting. And like just starting the network it doesn't have to be solid right now because you're just starting, but like start working on it, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah. I find that you never know where you're going to get support from. And so having that
Hmm.
network is good. And I've talked about this on my stream before too, that to me, networking seemed like a scary beast at first. And I thought, I have something I want, and that's why I'm networking with somebody. Maybe it's a job. And so I reach out to them. I know what I want. They don't know what I want. They might think I'm just reaching out to be friendly, but I want that job. And so I thought of it as like, oh, this is an evil thing. I need to stay away from it. And then I learned it's just contacting people. It's just reaching
Hmm.
out. And you can be upfront and say, look, I'm looking for a job. Do you have anything? Especially if they're your friends. So I definitely think that's good. You said you did a video with a recruiter. Was this something from, LinkedIn asking you to do it? Was this something for your own content?
Oh, it was for my own content.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in Portuguese, but I'm working on adding like subtitles to it. But this was a Brazil recruiter,
Mhm.
and so I mean, she was the one that hired me, and afterwards we became friends because we were living in the same building as a coincidence. So that was pretty cool. And then she, like helped with the content because I figure like I didn't know that was a possibility. Like if you don't know exists, like how you will want it,
Yeah.
so I wanted to like spread out the word. Like for me, it was like in Portuguese because that's where I was coming from. Um, but I know that's the reality for like many other places that don't know this is possible, right? And so like there was a lot of tips on like the interview itself, the process, for example, like the recruitment cycles. So like for Latin America, that usually is on like January. So in January, you should be applying and adding your resumes on the career website. And then for North America, that usually happens before because the internship is in July, like summer, which is pretty cool. Summer internships are the best. For me, it was like winter internship was still pretty good, but
Oh, wait,
and
you're saying you joined as an intern after your master's degree?
yeah, in the middle. So in the middle
Oh,
of
in the
my
middle.
master's degree, I got an internship, and then after the internship, they offered me the full-time job, and then I like went back to Brazil, finished my master's, and uh, here now. Yeah,
So I
as full-time.
hear from probably mutual acquaintances, but also just kind of across Microsoft that the interns are treated very well. Is that still the case?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I loved being an intern. I was like my first year, well, first of all, like the salary for an intern, I think it was very close to the salary that for the full-time
Oh,
offer.
wow.
And while, yeah, and what like as an intern, they pay for your housing, like you get a lot of swags, which I loved. And there are a lot of events too. For summer, there's even like bigger concerts and things like that. For winter, it's different. Like they cannot do a lot of things in that sense. But I got an Xbox, which I found was pretty cool. Like imagine, like I was like just I had a scholarship in my master's, and then like I came to my salary for the internship lasted me the entire year that year. So it was good.
Yeah, well, also the other thing about the summer internships here, people who are in the Seattle area probably know this, but summer is beautiful. And so people come here during the
Yes.
summer and they're like, this is how it is year round, right? And no, it's not. There's a lot of gray clouds, everything. But yeah, I've heard that about giving out fancy gifts. I've heard of laptops. You got an Xbox. They're really courting people who want to become full-time employees. And I think the reason why is the competitiveness in the industry. I mean, like you said, there are these career websites for all the big tech companies. So why do you think it is that people are seeking out big tech companies?
So yeah, I mean, it was even weird because when I got to the internship, I was like, like my ego was really high. I was like, oh, I'm at Microsoft. And I was really happy, as I should be. But then I met all these people that were on their third internship, or like they would be like, oh, like now I'm at Microsoft, and then on summer I'll be doing an internship at Google, and then
Okay.
like because the interviews, especially for university hires, are pretty similar throughout these companies. So if you go well in one, you're probably gonna go well on the other ones too. I mean, I don't know about Google specifically, but like the others are pretty similar. So I've seen people really take advantage of, like in a good way, of like taking these opportunities and applying to a lot of internships, and with that they get a much stronger offer at the end, right? And I think that the reason, at least for me, to go after big techs was because they would sponsor my visa, right?
Mm.
Like other companies would not do that, or like it wouldn't be that easy to do that. It'd be harder to find salary, like compensation. Like it's very, very competitive compared to other things. And because of the culture itself, like I always liked Microsoft culture in general. So, and also like while applying to the internship, during the interview process, in the breaks from one technical interview to the other, the recruiter will talk about Seattle and will talk about the company and will show all these videos. And I can't imagine how sad I was when I didn't pass the first time,
Oh no.
because they were like, "This is how summer in Seattle is the best summer ever." And like they would show these videos of people on the lake, just like surfing, not surfing, like I don't know, like on the boats and stuff. Um,
Oh man.
so yeah, they really sell, like
Yeah.
the the dream, the American dream, and the big tech company.
Well,
So
okay. So,
yeah,
but now you're in it. Now you're living the dream. You're paddleboarding every week. uh, what do you find about Microsoft
really.
culture that you really like? What are your favorite aspects of it?
my favorite, I think they care about people.
Hmm.
So I felt that's like from the recruitment until now. Like um, I don't if I'm feeling well, let's say, oh, I have a headache, and I tell my manager that I have a headache, so like, oh, I have a headache, maybe I won't be as productive today, or like, oh, I don't know. He's like, what are you doing? Stop working, go
Yeah.
rest,
Yeah.
like, or if I have a big thing coming up, he's like, take rest. Like they are always remind me of taking rest and prioritize myself and personal life
Yeah.
before work. So I don't know if that is happens with all teams at Microsoft, but I got lucky, I guess, if not, because and even like I know teams are different, but the company in general, right? Like the values that they have on diversity, on inclusion, I really like that, and I see they try harder to respect all those values.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And you said you were watching a little bit of the stream before this. There were some not quite horror stories that I was reading, but people were saying something like, "Hey, my manager is giving me this kind of work. I don't want that kind of work. What do I do?" And I can't imagine being in a place where you're not given the space to even say, "Hey, I'm sick. I'd like to go home." I just so I think it's good that they care about it. I think the other thing is Microsoft understands being a tech first company that it's not like your software engineers are tucked away in a closet somewhere. They're the
Yeah,
company. They're the main face of the company, I feel. So I think it's good that
yeah.
you're respected and valued there. I'm sorry to hear about the whole, you were shown the highlight reel of Seattle and then told, no, sorry. But okay, so now you've been here. What are the best things about Seattle area for you?
Oh my God. Summers.
Summers.
So the thing is, yeah, they told me summers, and then I got here, it's like all rain and winter. But so yeah, I struggle a lot with Seattle weather, especially.
Mm,
I mean, I'm from Brazil, as I told, so it's a very different climate, and I never had to think about the weather as being a bad thing. You're just like, oh, the weather, it's there, like, and here I'm like thinking about it all the time, and it's complicated because it's I don't want to feel like ungrateful of like where I am. But yeah, the weather gets to me like every year
yeah.
winter time.
I don't think that makes you, not grateful. And I think you can be grateful for, the opportunity to work at a company like Microsoft and then say, but I don't like the weather. I think that's totally fine. I will say this one thing that I absolutely love here is the amount of cherry blossoms that are in the area. And this is like
Oh yeah.
right that time of year. So you look out your window and see a pink tree, and I'm like, I'm in a fantasy game or something like that. It's just
Yes,
fantastic.
it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful every time. So I live in Seattle, Ballard, and if you're not familiar with how Seattle looks like, we have like Seattle here, and then on the other side we have what we call the east side. So that is Redmond, where the Microsoft campus is, Bellevue, and other small cities. So to go from Seattle to the east side, you cross a bridge. And the view from this bridge, like I cross it like 3 times a week because I work like kind of a hybrid mode, and I cannot get tired of it. It's just like it's beautiful. I
Yeah.
cannot say anything about how Seattle looks like. It's amazing. Like it has so much natural uh things around, and like when I the air is so pure as well. Unless there are like fires in California, but if not, then like the air is so great, and didn't realize that until I went to like I don't know New York or São Paulo. When I come back, I'm like, oh my God, how people can breathe here?
Yeah.
Like I value that so much.
By the way, I only
After
laugh at fires in California because there have been fires in Oregon and I think Washington as well, but you went right to California and said, no, it's them. I want to ask more about hybrid work. I totally agree, by the way. Every time I cross the 520 bridge or I-90 or something, I'm like, geez, this is crazy. Also, imagine owning a house on the lake and, that's
oh my gosh,
a totally different
yeah,
level. But yeah, so hybrid work, you said 3 days a week you're in the office. And so that means
yeah.
2 days a week you're back home. Is that a pretty consistent schedule?
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. It's a bit hard on the traffic side, so I have to adjust. So I feel like it has been a challenge because either I get 1 hour traffic each way, or I change my schedule so like I have to work, stop, drive,
Yeah.
and then do the same on the way back. Um, but so far as like it has been working. I'm being consistent with it. I feel like I also watched your video about why you left Google, and uh, one of the things I consider is like working fully remote,
Hmm.
but I'm also scared of like feeling isolated the way you mentioned, because I feel like during the pandemic everyone was remote, so it was okay, like everyone was remote, so
Yeah.
you still feel close. But when part of the team is there and part of the team is remote, I think it's harder, and I don't think they solved this issue yet. uh
Yeah, I think the pandemic was a big transition period for everybody, and it didn't go well for everybody, and it was, I think, very tough for some people. But now coming out of it, everyone just, it's almost like we've forgotten about the pandemic. I was joking with my wife yesterday because she's had a bit of a cough. She's not even covering her mouth in the house. She's just openly coughing. I'm like, I live here. I'm here. I could get sick still. I'm like, the pandemic was what, a year and a half ago or something. So yeah, it seems like we've kind of
I
collectively.
know. People are blowing candles on the cake again, like
Yeah.
on the birthday parties. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I would see this again.
Yeah. So now I feel like if you had coughed on an airplane, it was the same as shouting like I have a bomb on the airplane back during the pandemic. And now people don't bat an eyelash, it seems, or at least that's so. The isolation part of what you mentioned, I think, is a valid concern. And you saw the video I did, and it was a concern for me. And now it's, I had left the company, whatever it is, 5 months ago or something. I don't think much has probably changed. And I think that even if it has, you still, as a person, know what you want and what you need. And if you feel like you can get that from 5 days working at home, yeah, by all means do it. But otherwise, going into the office, seeing people, just kind of touching base, making friends, I think all that's really important. Um, I don't want to focus too much on the
Hmm.
Microsoft stuff. I want to ask you about your content. Now, I was doing research last night. I had my laptop, I had Instagram open, I had TikTok open, and I could understand
Ooh.
nothing. So, there are two words that I understood out of all of your videos, and it was body doubling. So why don't you tell me about body doubling? How long have you been doing it for? What do you get out of it? What do you like?
Oh my gosh. It was like, actually I didn't know about this before the book club. So like I've been part of a book club, and there like the members mentioned about body doubling. It's like, what is that? And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we get together and we do things that we really don't want to do, but because like we are together, then it feels like less like boring to do. And it worked. Like I really liked this. And I feel like I actually do this every day when I work from home too, because Kevin, my fiance, works like right next to me. So even though we are not doing, like the same things, because the purpose is not to do the same thing. It's just like work on your own thing, but on the same space. And then, like maybe you can talk about it, get opinions and things like that with the other person. I think that is like really helpful.
So do you mostly body double with Kevin? I know that's probably your work situation. Okay, but you've done it with people, I'm guessing, in the book club and outside of this. And so what are the sort of boring activities that you consider during body doubling?
Adult stuff
Adult
for
stuff.
me. Yeah, I like being adult, but so like everything that goes from like paying bills to like figuring out the um, travel that I had to cancel, and now I have to go back, like call the travel agency and get money back or something like that. Like all these things that just keep bugging you, but you never do it. Yeah.
Yep. And I suppose that's fitting because if you did it on your own, you wouldn't need the body doubling for it. In the sessions I do, it tends to be the stuff that I feel like I need to be rallied to do. So, for example, I
Mm-hmm.
have a picture that I want to hang on the wall. I will probably never in my life hang that picture on my wall if someone else isn't there saying like, "Hey, you want some company?" So,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. I think that's good.
Things that don't have a due date usually are never done,
Yeah.
Like,
No, I feel you on that.
so
So the content that you create, because I couldn't understand a lot of it, why don't you give an introduction for the people who may also be interested in this? What kind of stuff do you like to make? What is out there already?
yeah, sure. I mean, sorry about it. Sorry about that because it's like in Portuguese. And I started creating. Actually, content creator shift a lot for me during the years. I started during the pandemic just to like put a lot of informational videos on the like Microsoft process specifically, and like how to get there. And then with time, I was like full of work. And I was like, I don't want to keep talking about technology even on my free time,
Yeah.
and then, but I still like technology. Like I love technology. And then I decided to shift it a little bit to be a more of a day in a software engineer kind of thing. So I
Mhm.
have like been doing a lot of very short vlogs, because like 1 minute vlogs and on every vlog I try to put some information there, like a tool that I'm using, or a term, or like a process in the software engineering world that like it's common and maybe people don't know about. um, and yeah, now that things got a bit slower again in terms of work, like I'm thinking about going back to content. So I feel like I go back and forth with more informational content, or more like content that you can just, like easily you can easily watch, and like doesn't have a lot of information on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
that's the beauty of making content while you are still gainfully employed, which is that
Yeah.
you can choose what you want to do. You can choose when you want to have a lull with the content or a flood of content if you want. How do you find the reactions to these things? Are people liking the new vlog style content? Are they asking about the tools or the things that you mentioned in there?
Yeah, so I feel like the responses are being good for the vlogs, and but social media is tricky. Like sometimes they like the same content can have different, like reactions and responses depending on like the time, depending on, like what's going on the social media at that time. And I feel like working and doing the content creation part is hard, because content creation, I feel like I mean you probably know right now, like it takes a lot of time to
Yep.
do it right, and then I sometimes I don't post for a while, because I'm like, if I'm not doing something that I like, or like I won't do it. And sometimes I just do whatever I can because that's the time I have. So it's hard to consider it, and I really admire you for like just focus 100% on that. Maybe that will be me in a few years. But yeah, it's something that I really like. I get upset by it a lot of times when the responses are not what I expected, but still I keep coming back to it because that's what I like to
Yeah,
do.
I find there's that tension, I think, between any sort of creative endeavor and the reaction of the creative endeavor. And so you said you like doing this, and yet if the reaction isn't what you expected, maybe it's that time of year where people aren't as engaged in that content, maybe they're on vacation or something, or just someone else did a video a week before and it overshadows the one
Yeah.
that you might have done. So you said you might want to shift to this in the future. There's the content I asked you, what do you create now? But what is it you'd want to create? If you were to think, okay, I'm doing this full time, is it tech focused content? Do you think you'd get burned out on that? Is there something else you'd want to do?
Yeah, it's definitely tech focused, but I don't think I am a like I don't think I would do coding like specific content. I
Mm-hmm.
think I would go on more on the behavior side of it, like the soft skills required for you to go well on like as a software engineer
Yeah.
in general. Um, I mean, I even though I have a stream, it's also in Portuguese. I'm sorry, and I just started. It was my third stream that I do live
Wait,
coding
sorry, could I interrupt
because
for a second? You don't need to
yeah.
apologize. It's my fault I can't speak Portuguese. This is
Oh
not a
my god.
reflection on you. All right, please continue.
And it's like besides like I do a lot of joke type of things. I'm funny in Portuguese, so I have to like keep the Portuguese. But I started doing stream like three. It was my third stream, so I just started on live coding, right? And then like getting back to live coding was like challenging, but I'm also enjoying a lot because I feel like when you're doing this kind of challenge, like the lead code exercises, you kind of I don't know. It feels like it's exercising your brain, like because you don't have to do it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to think that hard
Well,
on a daily problems that you have.
it's true, and
Um,
to some extent I think that reflects on the interviewing process of where interviewing for a skill you don't necessarily do every day on your job. But that aside, because I don't want to get preachy here, are you doing leak coding on your live streams that you're doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm doing lead coding. Yeah.
And so, you mentioned it exercises your brain. I feel like live streaming any kind of coding adds another layer of just context switching and interacting with people. And so, are there any techniques you have to keep yourself focused, engaged, or on task, or do you drift with chat? How do you handle things?
Yeah, I usually try to do it as an interview. So like I don't shut down, like I don't stop talking, but
Yeah.
I'm talking with like as the interviewer are the people that are watching me.
Yeah.
And what is nice is that they help me as well because if they are watching, like a lot of people are actually like studying as well for interview. I think most of the people that see my content are people that are in college or like even like wanted to apply to college on computer science. So they are like better than me. I'm like, okay, guys, what next? And then they help me with yeah, figuring out. And then I'm like, this lives, this is the first time I'm seeing lit code exercises in like 4 years or more. So the goal is like at the end of this exercise, we will all understand what's going on
Yeah.
and have a solution. It's not me teaching you how to do a solution. So like we are doing this, like seeing this for the first time together. So yeah, that's the approach I'm doing. And then after we do like one exercise, and after that I like share a bunch of content on news. Right now, I'm mostly sharing news on AI. So, because like it's the new thing, I love like this space. So, like I share a lot of news and tools that are, like new and startups on AI and things that it can do. And yeah, it's hard. It's 2 hours live, and
Yeah.
most of the times we don't have time for everything. But yeah, it's working out. Yeah.
That's really cool. And I applaud you for doing this. I think it's really hard to put yourself out there. And I myself have tried that interview style content before where I was studying leak code. And if you ever feel judged doing regular code, you sort of especially feel judged doing leak code because that's the point of leak code is it's
Oh my God,
yeah.
yeah. I was thinking about doing live coding for so long, and I just didn't do it because I was like, I won't be able to do any exercise. And like people would judge me. But then I was like, you know what? It would be good to for people know that the lead code is not your daily life
Yeah.
when working as a software engineer. So it's fine. But yeah, the goal is to, like solve a problem, and we do that. Even if it take longer than, someone that is actively studying for interviews will solve them. Yeah.
Well, that's really good. And you said, oh, hey, the people who are watching might be better at these questions than you. What I've seen is that there's this synergy that exists where, okay, they're helping you a little bit, but also you're helping them. You're filling in blanks that they have. Not everyone there does know everything or is an expert. And also you're probably just, I mean, it's like the body doubling, but just over the course of the
Yeah.
internet. So yeah.
Yeah, and they are helping each other too, because it's not like one person that is saying everything. Like one person have a hint on on something, and then another person is like, "Oh, maybe it does and that," and then like I complete. So like it's all like a group kind of exercise that we do, and I think it's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
really
And it's
enjoying
that
it.
networking that you mentioned earlier. You're
Yeah,
meeting these people online, but you never know. And I've met a bunch of people in real life now that I only knew on the Twitch stream for a while. And so I think that's
yeah.
really cool. I think it's a very modern way of connecting with people. You mentioned AI and you mentioned you've been reading a lot of news on it. People have asked me at least 3 times today, have you heard of Devin? What do you think of Devin? So I'm just going to punt that question to you. Oh, okay.
Mm,
Well,
No, I
anyway.
haven't heard of Devin. What is Devin? Now I'm curious.
So
Wait, is
my
this new?
understanding is that it was an AI software engineer. So it wasn't just an AI you talk to. It was like you could give it a task and it'll go code
Oh, the
something.
first AI software engineer. I
Yeah.
saw news on that. It was recently, actually. I
It
think
was, yeah,
I
very
saw
recent. I
this
think like
today.
yesterday or
Oh,
something.
you
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, okay. Haven't, oh my gosh. I mean, I saw this coming. Um, but we try to deny it like, oh, AI will always need us. But really, I think the skills to code is becoming less and less important
Hmm.
in a way. And even was something that my manager told me at the beginning of my career. And he told me like, and I'll never forget. He's like, okay, I know you know how to code because, and everyone here knows how to code because that's how they got here. They
Yeah.
need to go through an interview and code. But uh, what else you offer to the company in, like to the team is how the soft skills, right? Like for those who doesn't know, like soft skills, like how do you communicate, how you work with a team, how like you solve problems that are complex, and and for me that was the like hardest challenges on the job. It was not a technical aspect,
Yeah.
it was how to get from an idea to a shipped product. Like it needs to go through so many things, and especially on a big tech, like they have so many safeguards that they need to have, otherwise they get sued all the time, right? And you need to go through them and talk to people, and some people will try to help you, some people will try to block you. That's just that truth. So yeah, I feel like that's why I like, if I was to choose to do content all the time,
Hmm.
you focus on this part
I see.
of the work.
So
Yeah.
what happens though if AI starts doing soft skills better than us?
Damn.
That is
Sorry.
that's good. That is over.
Then I don't know. I
Yeah.
would just, I don't know.
Well, so I ask partially in jest, and it's not really a serious question, but for a long time, people were saying, well, fine, AI can, calculate things faster than us, but could it make art? Can it make music? And for a long time, we were like, no, we can't. That's uniquely human. And now, in the last whatever couple of years, it's not like AI artwork is going to pass for human artwork now. But I saw something where you could describe a music track, upbeat, electronic dance music or something like that, and it'll just generate a track for you that's never been heard before. And again, maybe it's not as good as human made music, but it's something. And so what happens when
Mhm.
you're trying to, connect with your product manager and you can't figure out how, and you ask Devin to do it, and Devin says, I will craft the perfect message for you. And yeah, so anyway, maybe we're facing that in our future. I don't know. On a more practical note, how do you interact with AI on your job or sort of for your stream or your content creation? How do you intersect with AI?
Oh yeah. So well, I use GitHub Copilot
Mm-hmm.
like all the time. And I think it will evolve more and more, and like but right now I feel like it does need a human to, like interact with it, and even make the code better in a way. But it's perfect when you're like, oh, I don't know the syntax of this, like how do I do it? And explain this to me, and it will explain it. Even like if I'm going through, documentations or things like that, I can just ask, like the chat, and you'll give me the answer. So most of like during work, I've been mostly using it while coding,
Mm-hmm.
actually. And if you haven't tried GitHub Copilot, like you save a lot of time. Especially like it saved me a lot of time on unit testing, because I like unit test was something that I would not like you. It's not my priority. It was never my priority coding, but I know the importance of it. So now I'm like, create a unit test file for the like unit test case for this file, and it creates it, and I just have to edit some things and it's ready. So for me, that was, yeah,
Yeah,
a
I
good
think
time saver.
what would be perfect. So I also use GitHub Copilot. I think it would be great is if the tools got really good and easy to use, but not to the point where we're fearing for our jobs or people ask, what's the future of coding or anything. With that said, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they will just keep getting better and better to the point where, yes, we become guides for it. And then eventually we are, finding a different way to interact with technology and computer science. I don't know what courses will look like 10 years from now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
presumably you'll still need to learn the basics of something. You'll need to learn how a computer works, how your operating system works, and then what they say, okay, and that's what people did years ago, but now just say, hey, make me Windows 2.0, or Windows whatever, they'll be up to 40 by then. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's made.
And then I think like, well, you if there is an issue with how, I think prompt engineering will definitely be something that people have to learn about.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and something that I'm starting to study as well, because the way you prompt things to the AI gives you very different results. So, and understanding how to prompt the best way, I think could be key. Also for data analysts, like all this area would be very important to know how you can use AI to leverage everything. But I mean, yeah, I don't know what I was gonna get to this point, but
No,
um,
I hear you. I think there will still be jobs, and this is something I always kind of talk about, which is if AI destroys more jobs than it creates, then we have a problem. But if it creates jobs,
yeah,
then people will just need to adapt, and that's how technology has always changed humanity.
yeah.
So
Oh, and I remember, sorry. Like if AI doesn't give you the prompt, like doesn't give the response to your like expecting, or would you know how to change the code to make it right? Because like if you just know how to interact with AI and don't know like the basic and the fundamentals, like you won't be able to fix it.
yeah,
And then maybe those professionals will be more valuable in the future, because they everything, like, and not just. I think it's the same thing as when those websites templates started,
yeah,
right? Like Wix or WordPress. Like now you can have these beautiful templates. You can just use it. You don't have to hire a software engineer to create a website. But still, so that shift, right? Like the way people were like working, and now like if you want like a very specific website, professional website, you still have to go through like someone that knows what you know web development. So yeah, I think it will be a shift,
yeah.
but we'll have to adapt to, because we cannot go back now. So that's the thing.
That's true. We can't just shut down all the AIs. We saw the movie Terminator. We know that that's not possible. Have you seen Hot Ones? It's an interview with Sean Evans.
No,
Okay.
no.
Well, he does an interview where he has the people there in person. It's not digital. And he's got a bunch of hot wings in front of him, and they get increasingly hotter, and the people he's interviewing are more honest as a result of the spiciness and them being focused on. But anyway, he finds these like super specific questions, and I don't have anything super specific. The closest I could get is that I know you like a Brazilian soda, guarana soda, right? Okay.
Yes.
What are the top two Brazilian foods I should try?
Oh my God. Well, cheese bread for
Cheese bread.
sure,
Yeah.
which we have here in Seattle. Have you been to Quitanda?
No, I haven't.
Okay, we need to go there. Okay, that
Okay.
would be the even before we go to Brazil, I have to try the cheese bread, the chicken cone, which also has in Quitanda, but in Brazil will be better, of course. And like the barbecue, the all-you-can-eat barbecue places. I
Yeah,
think those
those are
three are,
very popular. It's
yeah,
seemingly all over. So yeah, it seems like lots of countries export their barbecue to the US
yeah,
and see how they compete.
yeah.
And by the way, there's a segment of YouTube videos I stumbled on a while ago of people in other countries trying American barbecue for the first time. And those are very fun to watch.
It was my, oh my God. I remember the first time I went to a barbecue. It was in Canada. And when I got the invite, I was like, barbecue, I don't know, Sunday, blah, blah. I was like, I didn't know what to expect.
Mhm.
Then when I got there, I thought it would be like Brazilian barbecue. So Brazilian barbecue, you get the piece of like meat and like you salted it. It's usually just salt. We don't season it with like other types of,
Yeah.
things, and then you grill it. And I went there, it was like burgers and hot dogs and buns, and I was like, what's going on? This is not what I expected. So yeah, it's very different definitions of barbecue.
I like that kind of culture shock because it wasn't unpleasant, I hope, but it was something different.
No,
And yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love burgers and hot dogs, but it was like I was not expecting for sure.
Okay, so I want to shift for a second here. We still have some time, and I said that people could post questions on Discord, so I'm going to go pull from there. And there were two at least. So, one, any tips to get your name out there and impress possible employers?
Well, I think be on LinkedIn. I think social media like plays a important role. Like even sometimes like manager will post they have open positions on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and LinkedIn was something I was not used before. Like in Brazil, like it depends. Like Brazil culture in general doesn't use LinkedIn, So that for sure. If not LinkedIn, then any social media that you can, like put your name out there. And I think social media is very important right now. And networking, I think, like doing a good job. I think the thing that I don't regret is like on every like project or like thing that I've done in college and before that was like giving my best in all of them. Even if they didn't feel like, oh, I don't like this is not important, just give your best because you never know. I will give just an example. Like I was interested in VR and then my project to like finish my undergrad was related to VR. And a guy that was like not even in my class, he was like some years older than me. He reached out and was like, "Oh, I'm working on this product for this conference. It's VR and AR. I see you liked it. Are you interested?" And that product, I think it was a volunteer project to the SIGGRAPH conference, which is like the biggest computer science conference, computer graphics. And I was able to work there for 2 years and deliver like an app that people used in the conference. And I think that was my strongest project in my resume when I applied. So like you never know, like just do the things that you like, that that you're gonna like to spend some time with it and do something good. Because people like you don't know, but they are watching.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. I think these are the kinds of things that are fortuitous because you probably weren't thinking about that as a possibility when you got into your VR project. And yet it happened. And like you said, affected 2 years of your life, formed good resume fodder. And now you know about VR. And if you ever want to go and do something like that, you can. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's really good advice. The second question that we had here was, can you say what kind of projects you're working on right now and what kind of tech you're using? And then they mentioned something specific here. They said, do you use like Golang for some projects or just .NET languages?
So that's the languages and the technical things that I use on my daily job, something that I always get asked about. I but I feel like people ask because they want to know what to study on what is hot in the industry. So let me do the short answer. I've been working mostly with web-based technology, so TypeScript, JavaScript, CSS, HTML. But things always change, right? So at first, I started a project that was like plain JavaScript, well, TypeScript, and I could not use any libraries. And then I moved to a project that was heavy on React, so I have to learn React. And then now I'm working on mobile, so I have to go on like all the Android, Java, like and we also have C sharp. So no, we don't have Golang that they asked about, but yeah, these are the technology I'm working like right now. But the thing is, don't get attached to technology. I think that's what my advice is.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
yeah.
Stay flexible and just keep learning. I think that's the constants here. I'm going to ask you the hardest question now, Amanda. Are you ready?
Oh my God.
Are you?
Is it the one about the cat? If I like the cats.
No.
Okay.
But I can ask you that too. How about that? We'll start with an easy one. Do you like cats?
I do like
Okay,
cats.
good. Then you've passed. The hardest question, what are the 3 words that started with M that you answered at the beginning of this interview?
Mouse,
Yes.
music,
Hmm. Good
Microsoft.
job. You answered in reverse order, but that's still good. So you reversed the linked
Yeah.
list and you answered the question. Flying
Yep.
colors. Excellent. Well, look, Amanda, do you have any closing thoughts? We're just about to wrap up here. Anything you want to say to my audience? Oh yeah, you want to plug your sites or anything? Totally fine. Whatever, anything you want to share.
Well, I just want to thank you everyone for listening to me. And if you have more like questions, just like send on the Discord chat or I think I have my Instagram somewhere, maybe in the chat as well. And yeah, if you want to DM me, feel free to do so. Like if it can be helpful in any way, just let me know. And thank you for your time.
Well, that's very nice of you. And thank you, Amanda, for being here. I really enjoyed it. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You
Yeah,
too. Thank
take care.
you. Good luck with the following interviews.
Yeah.
Excited to see the other ones. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, chat, let me switch to. Hang on. I want to make sure I'm not leaking anything before I do this. So give me a sec. One sec, just closing out of some stuff. All right, because I had all my questions, and in the question list was, here's the stuff not to talk about. And I realized I shouldn't have this as a document that just shows on screen. So here we go. All right, so thank you very much, Amanda. Claps for Amanda, just like I do with mentoring. I did not read chat during that time, which was probably obvious. I want to read quickly now. Hello, I'm an Amanda follower. I'm an Amanda follower too. Welcome in, people on YouTube. Yeah, so I had fun. Chat, I want to continue to do this sort of thing in the future. I do see some questions that I assume are for Amanda at this point. I really should have made an Amanda command. Let me do that really fast with interview. Okay, I want to link to this. So ACOM Amanda, the first interview was with Amanda. Cool. Okay, on Discord, her name is that right there, I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. Oh, I can't see because I'm on, never mind. I can't see yet, but I'm pretty sure that's her name. I think I tagged her in news. Yeah, anyway, if you just go to the news post, you'll see her Discord, her Instagram, her TikTok, all right there. So I'll just link in Discord. Yeah, so any kind of just immediate feedback on how, how you felt about this? Would you want to see more of this? Do you think I can improve? Because I want to keep doing interviews, and I want to eventually interview a wide range of people, but for now I'm kind of starting with the close network. So there'll probably be a lot of software engineers and kind of software engineer adjacent people, maybe product owners, designers, artists, and then who knows, could go anywhere. So the thing I kind of take as implicit feedback is people probably expect there to be some amount of like, you can just post a question in chat. And yeah, I should probably do something about that at some point. I liked it. Was curious how you two knew each other. We met through a mutual acquaintance, and we've been friends for, when did we meet? Like maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, something like that. Not totally sure. Sound balance needs some work. In what way exactly? Was it like my audio level is lower or higher than yours, you mean? Time command that spams post questions in Discord. Yeah, that could be pretty interesting for this. I'll write that down. People probably expect questions in chat to be answered. She's 150%, I'm 75% of 100. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I got to do more of an audio test, I think. Because I think I just asked quickly, like, can people, yeah, it's clear. I can hear your breath. Those on YouTube. She's much louder. Yeah, sorry about that. All right, well, in the future, I should try to make sure there are mods here so that I can fix that. My mic is pretty quiet. I think my mic has been good. I think I just had her sound probably a little bit high. Not as perfect as I'm used to. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Liked it. Very interesting. Thought you interviewed well. Definitely like to see more. Well, cool. Yeah, I'm glad people enjoyed it. I really do appreciate that Amanda spent the time doing this. The other thing that's kind of weird about this is that I just stream during the workday, so I feel bad for kind of taking people's work time. I could just look at the OBS mixer. Yeah, that's true. All right, I should definitely look into that. Make sure to get an alert set up for audio balance. Yeah. Yeah, not work time in Europe. Yeah, so if I ever interview someone from Europe, although if I were to, I'd probably end up doing it in the morning, and then it might still be, although I guess not, because I'm UTC -7 right now. Well, thank you all for watching. What's going to happen in the next couple days is tomorrow, Thursday, is going to be co-working on Discord. So if you haven't joined Discord, the link is just discord.gg/AdamLearns, or type the Discord command. And the way this is going to work, or at least here's what I'm planning, is that we'll be in the working channel here, but I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to mute everybody else. So it's just an indication that you're part of this, but there's no audio, or at least you can turn off the audio if you want to. And then there is a chat for the working channel right here. And this you can type as much as you want in here. And then, like I said, just mute Discord if you don't want to hear the pings. So it's going to be co-working done very differently. I'm not going to be streaming any of this. And that's tomorrow, so no stream tomorrow. And then Friday is probably going to be more like game design and well, just game design. And then maybe code reviews as well. So I have this code review sign up thing if anyone wants me to take a look at their code. Yeah. Where is most of your audience located anyway? I have an impression quite a few people are from Europe. Yeah, I think it's like, I think the last time I looked, it's like 30% US, some amount Canada. So, and then the rest is mostly Europe. So it's probably like 40% North America and I don't know, probably like 40% Europe and 20% other, something like that. What kind of work is taking place? Anything you want to do. It's basically like body doubling. So I'll be doing work on my course probably, and you all can do whatever you want. Game design for a code review game. No, sorry. So game design is for the, did I make a command out of this? I don't think I did. But the game we just started planning today, this morning. And then code reviews are going to be for just what people submit through the code review command. So there are a couple people who have submitted their code through there. Excuse me. Do you know how that compares to the distribution on Twitch in general? I don't, unfortunately. I can show you the stats I had from last time. Yeah, views by location. So this is for the last 30 days. These are the stats. And let's see if I even told them to you correctly. So US is about 30%. Okay, so US and Canada form 32%. And then Germany, UK, Poland, Sweden, France, Netherlands, Portugal. So all of that is Europe. And then Brazil. And then I don't know. I mean, I don't even know how much this totals, right? 27, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 3, 3, 2. 64%. So yeah, I don't know where the other 36% is coming from. I guess that 20% other really is like 20% other. Hello from Peru. Well, hello. I wonder how many of those are VPNs. Yeah, and I wouldn't have any way of detecting that. All right, everybody type your IP address into chat. Okay. All right, I'm going to get going. Today has been a very, very cool, full day. I had a blast. This is exactly what I want streaming to be. We did some game design, we did some group mentoring, and we did the first interview. I think this is super cool. So Friday will be a bit more like maybe a normal day, you know, game design, some code review stuff. I'm gonna go find someone to raid. I'm not gonna put a lot of time into this, so I'll just probably find someone I'm already following. Okay, I'm gonna raid someone I haven't raided since coming back. But her name is Shanna Quilt. And what is her stream title? It is Let's Test the Stream and Make More Cookies. So I think she's making cookies or clay pots. I'm not totally sure, but we're gonna raid her. Did that work? No, because I didn't type it correctly. Hooray! Okay, there we go. So thanks again for watching. I'll be back on Friday. Remember, no stream tomorrow. And the most important command for you to use here, if you haven't already used it, is check me out on Discord, join the server. And yeah, thank you very much. Bye, everybody.